LoveLore Library. Chapter 214. Your Majesty. Ah. Xiaoshunzi still wanted to say something, but Yi Hongyi's hand clamped down on his neck, causing his face to turn bright red. Yao Suwan, Zhen wants to see what else you're going to use to threaten Zhen. Yi Hongyi's long and narrow eyes narrowed fiercely. His hand abruptly tightened. With a crack, Xiaoshunzi's neck bone broke. Blood seeped out from the corner of Xiaoshunzi's mouth. Immediately after, that soulless body flew out like a kite with broken wings. It crashed heavily onto the ground, no longer breathing. Ah, no. Your Majesty. It wasn't him. It really wasn't him. Yao Suwan's face was ashen in fear. She stumbled backwards until she hit the wall. At that time, no matter how angry Yi Hongyi was, she was confident that she could escape unscathed. But now, she knew that if she didn't clarify the truth, she really wouldn't have another chance. It wasn't him. If it wasn't him, why would you be afraid? Yao Suwan. Haven't you always been very arrogant in front of Zhen? Even if Zhen knew that you colluded with luminescent Prince Yi Zixiao to rebel, Zhen couldn't do anything to you. Come. Continue being arrogant. Yi Hongyi walked towards Yao Suwan, his blood-stained hand slowly reaching out. Your Majesty. It really wasn't him. If you kill Suwan, you'll regret it. At that time, the entire world will know that you're a narrow-minded and muddle-headed ruler who killed his wife and children. Ah! Yao Suwan roared hysterically as Yi Hongyi grabbed her throat. Shut up. Zhen didn't do anything wrong. Yao Maxin deserves to die. She deserved to die. Ah! Yao Suwan's words were like a spear stabbing into Yi Hongyi's heart, stirring up the fear in the depths of his heart. Ah! Your Majesty. Believe Suwan one last time. You can lock Suwan up for 3 days. If there's no sign of trouble, it won't be too late to kill Suwan then. Yao Suwan's entire body was lifted up by Yi Hongyi. Her legs kept struggling as her red face gradually turned purple. Her eyes, which looked like they were about to pop out of their sockets, were frighteningly malevolent. You still want to lie to Zhen? Yi Hongyi gritted his teeth and tightened his grip on Yao Suwan. It's only 3 days. His Majesty has tolerated Suwan for so long. Is there a need for 3 more days? If it really is Xiaoshunzi, it wouldn't be too late for your Majesty to hack Suwan into 1,000 pieces. Yao Suwan's hands desperately tried to pry open Yi Hongyi's fingers, her bulging eyes bursting with intense pleading and desire. This was her last chance. If Yi Hongyi didn't move, then this sinister face in front of her would be the last scene she would ever see in her life. Yao Suwan's hands drooped weakly as she looked at Yi Hongyi's pitch-black and lifeless eyes. Even though her legs were no longer struggling, Yao Suwan's eyes were still wide open. She wanted to live, she wanted to live. She couldn't bear to close her eyes. Right at this moment, Yi Hongyi suddenly loosened his grip. Yao Suwan's body was like a fallen leaf swept by the autumn wind, swaying as she fell to the ground. Cough cough, cough cough cough. The moment the shackles on her throat were released, Yao Suwan pressed one hand against the ground while the other desperately clutched her chest, trying her best to suck in air. She had never craved air as much as she did right now. Every breath she took was extremely satisfying. Yao Suwan, listen up. In 3 days, if there aren't any signs of trouble, it's best if you commit suicide before Zhen stews you. In the end, Yi Hongyi wasn't willing to take the risk. He wasn't willing to gamble the throne he had painstakingly obtained. Your Majesty won't regret not killing Suwan, cough cough. Yao Suwan panted heavily as she spoke intermittently. And Bing Shan passed down the order. Send 30 imperial guards to guard Pureflower's palace. Without Jin's decree, no one is allowed to approach. Roared Yi Hongyi fiercely, then flicked his sleeves and left. After Yi Hongyi left, and Bingshan followed the decree and sent imperial guards to imprison Yao Sulwan in Pure Flower's palace. Mingyuk took the opportunity to ask An Bingshan to transfer her away. After this matter, Yao Sulwan would definitely hold a grudge against her, so leaving was the best option. That night, Yi Hongyi kept his promise and set up a banquet in Pure Flower's palace to celebrate Wang Qinruo's victory. When they first entered Pure Flower's palace, a refreshing fragrance wafted through the air, making them feel relaxed and happy. It was as if they were in a sea of flowers, exceptionally comfortable. This subject concubine Qinruo kowtows in salute to your majesty. The delicate and gentle voice was pleasant to listen to, like the sounds of nature. Tonight, Wang Qinruo had dressed up especially. She wore a light pink robe wrapped around her body, matched with an emerald green dress with scattered flowers. A green sash hung down from her waist, complementing the sea of clouds on her dress. A jade phoenix hairpin was stuck into her beautiful flying sky bun. When she spoke, the pendant on the hairpin swayed slightly, accentuating Wang Qinruo's beauty. Beloved concubine, quickly rise. Yi Hongyi took a step forward to help Wang Qinruo up. The moment their skin touched, he could clearly feel that Wang Qinruo's skin was as smooth as jade, white and rosy, making her look even more beautiful than a young woman. Especially that faint fragrance, it made people want to get closer to it greedily. Your Majesty. Sensing the heat in Yi Hongyi's eyes, Wang Qinruo pursed her lips and lowered her eyes shyly, her cheeks instantly turning red. Beloved concubine smells so good. Yi Hongyi didn't pursue the reason, instead, he lovingly pulled Wang Qinruo into his embrace, enjoying the faint fragrance coming from her body. Your Majesty, this concubine will pour wine for you. Wang Qinruo's slender fingers lifted the wine pot and filled Yi Hongyi's cup. How long has it been since Shen drank with beloved concubine at the same table? Beloved concubine, in being able to uncover the person who secretly contacted Yao Sulwan this time, your contributions cannot go unnoticed. This pot is a fruit wine Jin specially ordered the imperial kitchen to prepare. I believe beloved concubine will definitely like it. As Yi Hongyi spoke, he lifted the jade porcelain wine pot and personally filled it for Wang Qinruo. Your Highness. When Huofeng saw Wang Qinruo raise the wine cup, Huofeng abruptly walked forward with a serious expression. Huofeng, there's nothing else for you to do here. Withdraw. Wang Qinruo turned and looked towards Huofeng coldly. Huofeng originally wanted to take another step forward, but when she saw the light in Wang Qinruo's eyes grow colder, she resisted the urge to retreat. However, she refused to leave the main hall. If anything happened to Master, even if she had to risk her life, she would make Yi Hongyi pay with blood. Come. Shen offers a toast to beloved concubine. Yi Hongyi was in a good mood. He immediately raised his wine cup and looked towards Wang Qinruo with a gratified expression. After the meal, Yi Hongyi and Wang Qinruo drank to their heart's content. It wasn't until Yi Hongyi's drunken eyes shone with a faint desire that the banquet finally ended. Your Majesty, you're drunk. How about this concubine let eunuch and come in and help you back? Wang Qinruo supported Yi Hongyi, who was leaning against the back of the chair, and spoke shyly, but her heart was filled with desire. Back. Beloved concubine, do you really want Jin to go back? Yi Hongyi lifted Wang Qinruo's chin with hazy eyes and kissed her without restraint. It was so sudden, so fierce, like a hurricane. Wang Qinruo was stunned. Woo! Wang Qinruo stood there foolishly, allowing Yi Hongyi to do whatever he wanted. Her heart seemed to contain a little deer that kept running around. Yi Hongyi's kiss was wild and intense. Wang Qinruo couldn't resist and her delicate body went limp. Beloved concubine smells so good. Yi Hongyi murmured softly as his hot and wet kisses moved to her ears. His hands impatiently tore off Wang Qinruo's luxurious clothes. When he saw that the two large words on Wang Qinruo's chest had turned into two blood-colored roses, Yi Hongyi's body quickly swelled up. He then carried Wang Qinruo horizontally and strode towards the bedroom. Yi Hongyi didn't even bother to kick the door shut. Only when that charming and gentle voice reached Flamephoenix's ears did Flame Phoenix come to her senses. She had never expected this kind of result. Reality was vastly different from what she had imagined. Inside Guan Osprey Palace, when Huo Feng reported the results to Yao Moen, she didn't seem surprised at all. Chapter 2:15. So you came to ask Ben Gong to give some of the imperial favor to Empress Shu. Yao Moen felt an indescribable pain in her heart as she looked at the fire phoenix in front of her. To be able to have a servant like this was Wang Qinruo's great fortune. Since Nyang Nyang disdains imperial favor, then please help my master. It's rare that His Majesty didn't have any murderous intent and was even willing to stay in Yihua Palace. My master has waited for more than 20 years and the bitterness is finally over. Huo Feng begs Nyang Nyang to help. As Huo Feng spoke, she knelt in front of Yao Moen. Do you really think that Yi Hongyi will let your master off? Yao Mo Wan leisurely got up and extended a hand to support Huo Feng. That's the truth. Fire Phoenix has to believe it. When she saw her master drink the fruit wine, she was already prepared to die. Fortunately, it was just a false alarm. The reality is that Yao Sulwan has only been imprisoned by His Majesty in Pure Flower's palace. You should be able to guess His Majesty's intentions for doing this. Yao Moen knew that this round wouldn't take Yao Sulwan's life. She also didn't want Yao Sulwan to die. Your Majesty suspects Xiaoshanzi's authenticity. Fire Phoenix looked towards Yao Moen in realization. Do you think we can just find someone to make up the numbers and everything will be fine? His Majesty places Yao Sulwan under house arrest for 3 days. After 3 days, if there is any news regarding eldest sister's death, then it means that Xiaoshanzi isn't the person His Majesty is looking for. Yao Moen slightly nodded. Then what should we do? If the emperor knew that Xiaoshanzi was a fake, he would definitely vent his anger on his master. What should he do? His Majesty is the one who's moved by master. Huo Feng looked towards Yao Mo Wan anxiously, finally realizing the seriousness of the problem. Fire Phoenix, have you become confused after following honored consort Shu for so long? You should know better than me what kind of person the emperor is. The reason why honored consort Shu is still alive is not because the emperor is benevolent. He is waiting. After 3 days, if there really is news, the emperor will make the final decision. If fair consort Shu is no longer of any use, do you think he'll still remember the rain and dew we've given him tonight? Yao Moen shook her head and sighed as she looked towards Fire Phoenix. She and Yi Hongyi had been husband and wife for 7 years and had even given birth to a son, but what was the result? But Fire Phoenix looked towards Yao Moen in a daze. She really didn't know what to do. In 3 days, if there really is news, it's best if you take consort Shu and leave, reminded Yao Moen with good intentions. Without the emperor, master's life would be meaningless. Huo Feng's face was bitter and her heart was in a mess. For the past 3 days, everyone seemed to have been soaked in bitter water. They were tormented by the contradiction of fear and anticipation, except for Wang Qinruo. Inside Yihua Palace, Wang Qinruo sat alone in front of a mirror. She greedily looked at the face reflected in the bronze mirror. Her phoenix eyes were filled with love. Her lips curved into a knowing smile. For 2 days in a row, the emperor stayed in Yihua Palace. Something she didn't even dare to think about happened. After suffering came happiness. The emperor finally had her figure in his eyes. Your Highness, and Bing Shan came just now. He said that His Majesty would be coming over later. Wang Qinruo only returned to her senses when the fire phoenix walked over to her side. What about dinner? Did His Majesty say that he would eat at Yihua Palace? Wang Qinruo lifted her brows as she looked towards Huofeng. She had the demeanor of a petite woman. She believed that in this moment, Nyang Nyang was very happy. No, and Bing Shan said that His Majesty would only come after dinner. His Majesty ordered people to imprison Yao Sulwan, clearly to verify Xia Shunzi's authenticity. Has Nyang Nyang ever thought that if that Xia Shunzi isn't the person we're looking for? His Majesty. Huofeng looked towards Wang Qinruo worriedly. Huofeng, Ben Gong knows that you're thinking for Ben Gong's sake, but you're thinking too much. How could His Majesty harm Ben Gong? Last time, you insisted on changing the fruit wine that His Majesty poured for Ben Gong, but reality proved that there was no problem with that wine. Ben Gong believes that even if Xia Shunzi isn't the person we're looking for, at worst, Ben Gong can just set up another trap and help His Majesty search again. Wang Qinruo looked towards Huofeng angrily, her voice filled with undisguised blame. It's this servant who's thinking too much. Huofeng originally wanted to bring up the matter of leaving, but when she saw how certain her master was, she resisted the urge to speak up. That night, Wang Qinruo sat alone by the bed and waited, but she didn't see Yi Hongyi's figure. The next day, when Huofeng hurriedly knocked on the door and entered, Wang Qinruo was sitting quietly by the bed, her eyes filled with exhaustion and apprehension. Nyang Nyang, it's bad. Since last night, there have already been rumors that before Empress Yao Maxin died, she was holding a badly mangled infant in her arms. Right now, everyone in the palace is guessing who the murderer of Yao Maxin's child is. Huofeng rushed over to Wang Qinruo with a worried expression. As expected, Xia Shunzi was fake. No wonder His Majesty didn't come to Yihua Palace, His Majesty must be angry. Ben Gong is going to set up another trap and lure that person out. Huofeng, help Ben Gong think, what should we do next? Wang Qinruo got up in a panic and pulled on Huofeng with both hands. Nyang Nyang, since there's already been a first, Yao Sulwan wouldn't easily contact that person. How about, this servant bring you away? You know no less than Yao Sulwan. His Majesty can think of a way to get rid of Yao Sulwan today, but who knows what other methods he'll use to deal with you tomorrow. Fire Phoenix was shocked and looked at her master in disbelief. How is Ben Gong the same as Yao Sulwan? His Majesty has Ben Gong in his heart, he loves Ben Gong. How could that Yao Sulwan be worthy of His Majesty's love? Wang Qinruo glared angrily at Huofeng. Sorry, this servant knows her wrongs. Huofeng suppressed the aggrieved and anxious feeling in her heart and lowered her eyes. She had already expected this result. Unless Master personally experienced His Majesty's heartlessness, she wouldn't wake up. Leave. You're not allowed to mention this matter again. Wang Qinruo waved her hand to dismiss Huofeng, then sat back down on the couch. Hongyi, you wouldn't do this to me, you wouldn't. Inside Pure Flower's palace, when Yao Sulwan saw Yi Hongyi's handsome face tumble into the room, she knew that she was safe. Emperor. Yao Sulwan was just about to get up and speak when she felt a gust of wind. Then, there was a crisp sound and blood seeped out of the corner of Yao Sulwan's mouth. Lowly woman. Who exactly is that person? Where is he? Yi Hongyi gritted his teeth as he roared, his hands clenched into fists. But the crazier Yi Hongyi became, the more Yao Sulwan believed that she was far from death. Sulwan said that His Majesty wouldn't regret it. Look, if Sulwan really is killed, just how terrible the consequences will be. Yao Sulwan fiercely wiped away the blood at the corner of her mouth and laughed coldly. Even though she was isolated from the outside world, it wasn't hard to tell from Yi Hongyi's reaction that some of the news had already spread. What do I have to do to stop the rumors? Yi Hongyi walked forward and pulled Yao Sulwan up, asking ruthlessly. Yao Sulwan was speechless. She pushed Yi Hongyi away coldly and walked to the table, her lips curling into an unbridled smile. What are you smiling at? Yi Hongyi was furious, his fists clenched so tightly that they cracked. Sulwan is smiling at why His Majesty would ask such a stupid question. How could the rumors that have already spread be stopped? Yao Sulwan lifted the teapot with her jade fingers. She could finally drink water in peace. These past 3 days had been torture in hell for her. That feeling of fear and longing for judgment could finally be released. Bang! Yi Hongyi flung the teacup to the ground. The fragments that flew into the air stabbed into Yi Hongyi's palm, causing dark red blood to gush out. Yao Sulwan. Are you messing with Zhen? Yi Hongyi ignored the pain in his palm and rushed in front of Yao Sulwan. His black eyes were like a wild beast's as he glared at Yao Sulwan, as if he wanted to tear her apart. Chapter 2:16. Your Majesty should believe Sulwan. In this world, there's no one who wants the rumors to stop more than Sulwan. This is Sulwan's final bargaining chip. Furthermore, the current situation wasn't caused by Sulwan. Your Majesty should go look for the instigator. As for the rumors, Sulwan can guarantee that as long as Sulwan is able to enter and leave the Imperial Palace freely again, those rumors won't have any new content, promised Yao Sulwan confidently. You! Yi Hongyi looked towards Yao Sulwan furiously. At this moment, the thing he regretted the most was letting Yao Sulwan see everything with her own eyes. Your Majesty, take care. This concubine won't send you off. Yao Sulwan glanced at Yi Hongyi. As of now, there was nothing left to say between the two of them. The reason she was able to live wasn't because of Yi Hongyi's benevolence, but because of her own abilities. Yi Hongyi clenched his teeth, then walked towards the palace gate with a flick of his sleeve. In reality, rather than dealing with Sulwan, Your Majesty should be thinking about how to shut Shu Fei's mouth. If you wait until Shu Fei also learns to use this method to restrain Your Majesty, then it will truly be too late for regrets. Yao Sulwan's eyes narrowed slightly, a cold light flashing through them. When Yi Hongyi heard this, he was stunned. A cold light flashed through his deep eyes. When Yao Sulwan noticed Yi Hongyi's momentary pause, the corners of her lips curled into a smile. Wang Qinruo, in this imperial palace, not everyone has the ability to harm this consort. When Yi Hongyi appeared once more in Yihua Palace, Wang Qinruo hurriedly went to greet him. Your Majesty, this concubine was careless and handed Xiaoshunzi to Your Majesty without investigating clearly. But Your Majesty, don't worry, this concubine has already thought of a way to deal with Yao Sulwan. As long as Your Majesty gives this concubine 10 days, this concubine promises. Wang Qinruo looked towards Yi Hongyi nervously, but before she could finish speaking, she felt a warm breath on her face. Yi Hongyi's kiss brushed past Wang Qinruo's lips like a dragonfly skimming the surface of the water. Zhen has never blamed beloved consort. Zhen will naturally handle this matter. From today onwards, Zhen will no longer bear to let beloved consort do those troublesome things. In the past, Zhen had let down my beloved consort, letting my beloved consort stay in an empty boudoir for so long. From now on, Zhen will compensate my beloved consort twice as much. Yi Hongyi dotingly hugged Wang Qinruo. Every word he said, beloved consort, was so sweet. Does Your Majesty not trust Qinruo? Asked Wang Qinruo suspiciously as she was pulled to the side of the table. It is we who cannot bear to see our beloved concubine suffer. From today onwards, our beloved concubine's mission is to nourish her body so that she can give birth to a little prince for us. We hope that our child can be as beautiful as our beloved concubine and emit a fragrance all over. Yi Hongyi lovingly pinched Wang Qinruo's long hair and lightly tucked it behind her ear. Then, he ordered An Bingshan to set up a banquet. There wasn't a trace of hostility on his face. On one side, Fire Phoenix saw all of this. Her heart was uneasy. The truth was exposed. This shouldn't be the Emperor's attitude. Even if the Emperor didn't punish her master, he should at least plan the next step. However, the Emperor didn't mention anything. This was absolutely unreasonable. Seeing the delicious delicacies being brought to the table, Yi Hongyi held Wang Qinruo tightly the entire time and didn't let go for even a moment. His eyes were full of smiles, but a trace of ruthlessness flashed through his heart. When An Bingshan personally brought the wine over, Fire Phoenix didn't miss the opportunity to take the tray. Eunuch and has worked hard. Let this servant serve master. When Fire Phoenix reached out, An Bingshan deliberately took a step back and subconsciously looked towards Yi Hongyi. It's enough for Fire Phoenix to serve here. You can withdraw first. Yi Hongyi nodded slightly. Only after receiving the decree did An Bingshan let go and pass the tray to Fire Phoenix. When An Bingshan turned around, Fire Phoenix reached out with one hand and sucked the wine in the pot into her sleeve. Then, she poured the water from the water pouch in her sleeve into the pot. When Wang Qinruo drank the first cup of fruit wine, she knew that Fire Phoenix had tampered with the wine. Although she was angry, she didn't show it. Fortunately, Yi Hongyi didn't try to drink any fruit wine during the entire banquet. Otherwise, she really didn't know how to explain it. She originally thought that Yi Hongyi would stay, but Yi Hongyi used the excuse that he had documents to deal with and left Yihua Palace. Fire Phoenix. Why did you do this? You also heard it just now. His Majesty didn't blame Ben Gong at all. His Majesty has already placed Ben Gong in his heart and even hoped that Ben Gong would be able to get pregnant. Why did you have to be so suspicious? Why did you have to? Once Yi Hongyi was far away, Wang Qinruo looked towards Fire Phoenix coldly and scolded angrily. Your Highness, Pu. Before Wang Qinruo could finish, Fire Phoenix felt a fishy and salty taste in her throat. Blood sprayed out of her mouth and her body swayed as she fell to the ground. Black blood splattered all over the ground. Fire Phoenix. How could this be? How could this be? Wang Qinruo suddenly ran to Fire Phoenix's side in shock, her eyes misty. Your Highness. Fire Phoenix struggled to pull up the wide sleeve on her left arm. A long black line extended from Fire Phoenix's palm all the way to her arm. You've been poisoned. Is it His Majesty's fruit wine? Impossible. This is impossible. His Majesty clearly said that Ben Gong would bear a child for him. He clearly said that he would compensate Ben Gong. How could he have poisoned Ben Gong? How is this possible? Fire Phoenix, you're lying to Ben Gong, right? Fire Phoenix. Wang Qinruo sobbed as tears rolled down her cheeks. Your Highness, open your eyes and look at that man clearly. How does the Empress treat him? He actually personally threw his own child to death and forced the Empress to commit suicide in the cold palace. How much truth could a man like this possibly say? This servant knows that Master doesn't like to hear these things, but this servant doesn't have the chance. If I don't wake your Highness up, this servant can't bear to close my eyes. Blood flowed out and the black blood dyed Fire Phoenix's clothes. But Ben Gong has done so much for him. Ben Gong's body doesn't stink anymore. Fire Phoenix, Ben Gong's body doesn't stink anymore. Why did he still do this? Why? Wang Qinruo's tears fell like rain. The pain that had accumulated in her chest was like a flood that had broken through a dam, flowing out from every single hair on her body. Your ladyship has already wasted more than 20 years for a man who isn't worth it. It's been more than 20 years, how could your ladyship not know what kind of person His Majesty is? Your ladyship, wake up. Fire Phoenix is willing to use its own life to exchange for the rest of her ladyship's life. Puff. Fire Phoenix's body suddenly spasmed and black blood gushed out of its mouth. I don't want a phoenix. Don't die. I beg you, don't abandon me and leave. I can't bear to part with you. I was wrong. You're wrong. Wang Qinruo holds Fire Phoenix's cramping arm tightly and looks at Fire Phoenix pleadingly. Her eyes are blurred with tears, but her heart is cleansed. Your ladyship, Flame Phoenix also can't bear to part with you. But what should we do? Flame Phoenix is about to leave. Flamephoenix's tears slowly flowed down from the corners of her eyes. Her entire body was convulsing, but she couldn't bear to close her eyes or let go of Wang Qinruo's hand. It was this empress who had eyes but failed to see, it was this empress who was possessed. Fire Phoenix, I know I was wrong. I know that even if I dug out my heart and gave it to him, he wouldn't even spare me a glance. I know everything. Fire Phoenix. No, don't go. Stay with me. I beg you. As long as you survive, I'll take you away from here and never come back, all right? Wang Qinruo finally admitted the truth that she had never been willing to admit in this life. She tightly hugged Fire Phoenix, her heart aching to the extreme. She had always chased after those dreams that would never come true and had never spent a single thought on Fire Phoenix. It was just that right now, she wanted to give all of her love to Fire Phoenix, but it was too late. All right. Flame Phoenix really wants to leave this place with your ladyship. Only by leaving will your ladyship be happy. Only then will your ladyship be free. Flamephoenix's hot tears fell onto Wang Qinruo's palm. The heat of those tears burned every inch of Wang Qinruo's skin, causing her to wish she was dead. It was at this moment that the sound of hurried footsteps suddenly came from outside the door. There was also the faint sound of armor rubbing against each other. This is bad. It must be someone sent by the Emperor. Your ladyship, quickly hide. Remember, go find noble consort Yao. Only she can help you leave. The smile on Fire Phoenix's face instantly froze and her eyes looked towards Wang Qinruo with the last traces of worry. Chapter 217. No. This consort won't separate from you. Huofeng. Wang Qinruo cried out mournfully as she hugged Huofeng tightly. She couldn't bear to let go. She was afraid that if she did, she would lose the best sister she had in the world. Your Highness. Let go. Huofeng's hands finally fell weakly to the ground. Those eyes that had been filled with boundless hope gradually became empty and lifeless. Huofeng. This consort won't let you die in vain. Wang Qinruo's heart felt like it had been sealed in ice. She hugged Huofeng tightly as her tears fell into Huofeng's empty eyes. At this moment, Huofeng seemed to sense Wang Qinruo's decision and slowly closed her eyes. Suddenly, the door to Yihua Palace was pushed open. When Azure Dragon stepped into the main hall, he saw Huofeng lying on the ground, dead. Search! Azure Dragon ordered sternly in shock. The guards immediately rushed into the room, but unfortunately, they couldn't find Wang Qinruo's figure even after searching the entire palace. When the guards returned, Azure Dragon's expression turned cold. He had a bad premonition, so he turned around and headed for the imperial study. By the time Yin Shui brought Wang Qinruo to Guan Osprey Palace, Yao Moan had already been waiting for a long time. Eat this. When Yao Moan saw Wang Qinruo's battered appearance, her heart ached. Without any hesitation, Wang Qinruo walked forward, picked up half a pill from the table, and swallowed it. You knew that this would be the result. Then why didn't you save Huifeng? Why? Wang Qinruo screamed at the top of her lungs. She couldn't hold back her tears any longer and they fell. Because Huifeng wanted to use her own death to prove to you that Yi Hongyi was vicious and merciless. When Yin Shui appeared in front of her with Wang Qinruo, Yao Moan knew that Huifeng's fate was most likely sealed. She felt indescribable admiration for this palace maid, so Yao Moan's heart was filled with pain and anguish when Huifeng died. What did you say? Wang Qinruo choked back sobs as she questioned Yao Moan. Her eyes were brimming with tears. I have already reminded Fire Phoenix that if there is any sign of trouble in 3 days, we must take you away. In fact, with Huifeng's kung fu, she has enough ability to knock you out and then escape from the palace with you. In this way, both of you will not die, but perhaps I understand her intention. If I don't prove to you that the wine is poisoned, you will never be able to untie the knot in your heart in this life. Yao Moan looked towards Wang Qinruo a little angrily, but in the end, her tone turned a little sad and self-deprecating. If she hadn't died once, how would she know that she had always been so despicable? Therefore, on this point, she had no right to mock Wang Qinruo. You fool! Fire Phoenix, you fool! Wang Qinruo sat on the ground in pain. She pounded the ground with her hands and tears rolled down her cheeks. She's not stupid. She's loyal. Ask yourself honestly, if you hadn't seen it with your own eyes, how would you believe that Yi Hongyi would be so vicious and merciless? What this consort gave you earlier was the other half of the condensed fragrance pill. After eating it, your body will no longer emit that faint fragrance. This consort did this so that you wouldn't be found so easily by Yi Hongyi. You won't blame this consort, right? Yao Moan slowly walked to Wang Qinruo's side and helped her to a seat with tears in her eyes. It was this consort that was possessed, this consort was blind awe. Wang Qinruo wailed in pain and despair as she threw herself into Yao Moan's embrace. What exactly had she done for the past 20 years? You're not the only one who's blind. Yao Moan patted Wang Qinruo's shoulder lightly as a single tear fell. After crying for who knew how long, Yao Moan finally let go of Wang Qinruo when she was completely exhausted. What do you want to do now? Yao Moan personally poured a cup of warm tea for Wang Qinruo so that she could hold it in her hands. Even though her heart was already cold, it could at least warm her hands. This consort doesn't want to leave just like this. Fire Phoenix died in this consort's place, the murderer is Yi Hongyi. This consort will make him get retribution. Wang Qinruo's hands trembled as she held the teacup. Her eyes were filled with extreme grief and indignation. Now that Yi Hongyi has made it clear that he wants to kill you to silence you, do you really think that you'll be able to show yourself again? Yao Moan slowly sat down on her seat as she reminded indifferently. This consort wants to expose Yi Hongyi's evil deeds to the world. Expose that he used the most vicious method to kill his own son and even hounded the current empress to death. Wang Qinruo suddenly raised her eyes to look towards Yao Moan as she roared in anger. You already knew the truth. Wang Qinruo looked at Yao Moan's practically unchanged expression in shock and doubt. That's right, I accidentally overheard Yao Sulwan and Yi Hongyi's conversation. Eldest sister died so tragically. This consort's nephew wasn't even born for a day. Yao Moan's voice was slightly hoarse as her eyes misted over. So you've been pretending to be crazy all this time for the sake of revenge? Wang Qinruo wiped the tears from the corners of her eyes as she looked towards Yao Moan in realization. If this enmity isn't avenged, this consort wouldn't be worthy of being called a human. Yao Moan smiled, but it caused one to feel a bone-chilling coldness. This consort understands. Wang Qinruo nodded reflexively. No wonder so many unimaginable things had happened ever since Yao Moen entered the palace. Xian consort Yu Funing had disappeared, de consort Xia Xin had hung herself, Chen consort Huan Kaier had refused to be titled empress. What kind of twisted story was behind all of this? As for herself, as one of the 4 great noble consorts, how could this have escaped Yao Moen's eyes? Perhaps she hadn't been the one playing chess from the very beginning. Xu Fei can go and expose this consort. Perhaps this consort might even be able to carry out a meritorious deed, said Yao Moen indifferently. This consort swears that to this day, if this consort still has the slightest bit of fantasies about Yi Hongyi, then this consort is willing to suffer the retribution of having no descendants, said Wang Qinruo ruthlessly. Her eyes were filled with extreme hatred. If it wasn't for the extreme pain, how could she have achieved enlightenment? Only those who had experienced it would be able to empathize with her. Yi Hongyi is utterly devoid of conscience and will naturally receive retribution from the heavens. This consort advises Xu Fei to leave this place. Yao Moen restrained the pity in her eyes as she suggested this solemnly. Noble consort Yao's meaning is that you don't want this consort to publicize this matter, asked Wang Qinruo with a frown. Now isn't the time. Yao Moen nodded slightly. Yi Juanqing's power still wasn't strong enough to contend against Yi Hongyi. If he found out the truth too early, then all the effort she had put in to conceal it would be meaningless. All right. This consort can listen to your arrangements, but please bring out Fire Phoenix's corpse. This consort wants to leave with Fire Phoenix. When Wang Qinruo recalled the anticipation in Fire Phoenix's eyes before it died, her tears fell once more. How could she bear to leave Fire Phoenix in such a cold place? Even if Xu Fei hadn't said anything, this consort wouldn't have allowed Yi Hongyi to casually deal with Fire Phoenix. Yin Shui, I'll leave this matter to you. Yao Moen turned to look towards Yin Shui and nodded slightly. Yin Shui understood tacitly and leaped out of Guan Osprey Palace. Qinruo will never forget noble consort Yao's great kindness. If fate wills it in the future, Qinruo will definitely repay today's kindness. Wang Qinruo looked towards Yao Moen with a resolute gaze. Actually, this consort has one more request. Yao Moen looked towards Wang Qinruo with a serious expression, her eyes filled with anticipation. I really don't know how a destitute consort can help you, sighed Wang Qinruo. Chapter 218. This consort hopes that consort Xu can see Yi Juanqing. Some things might not be believed even if this consort says them. Yao Moen sighed inwardly. Ever since the rumors had spread, Yi Juanqing had been running around for her matters without a care for his own life. Yi Juanqing. Qinruo had already warned Yi Hongyi to eliminate the root of the problem. Now it seems that it wasn't without reason. With noble consort Yao's help, Great Chu will soon have a change of master. Wang Qinruo couldn't describe her current mood. In just a few days, her mood had changed drastically. Thank you for your auspicious words. Yao Moen smiled lightly, her lips curved with indescribable determination. Imperial study, what did you say? The one who died was Fire Phoenix. Then what about consort Xu? Yi Hongyi narrowed his eyes in anger. Replying, Your Majesty, when this subordinate arrived, I only saw Fire Phoenix lying on the ground poisoned. I searched everywhere but didn't see consort Xu. This subordinate has already sent people to search everywhere, but... reported Qing Long, we don't want to hear buts. No matter what, we have to find Wang Qinruo. There's a fragrance on her body, follow the smell. Pass on our orders, consort Xu attempted to assassinate and has now escaped. Anyone who sees her can be killed without mercy, roared Yi Hongyi. This subordinate obeys. Qing Long cupped his hands and left. The moment the door closed, Yi Hongyi stumbled and fell onto the throne. His eyes were filled with shock and fear. He had clearly seen Wang Qinruo drink the fruit wine, so how did Fire Phoenix die? Could it be? Fire Phoenix must have done something when she received the wine. That damned Fire Phoenix. What should he do now? What if Wang Qinruo spread the news? Yi Hongyi's lips trembled uncontrollably as his heart pounded. Why did it turn out like this? Yao Maxin, was it you? Are you taking revenge on us? Bring it on, bring it on. We dared to kill you when you were still human. We wouldn't be afraid of you even if we were a ghost. Come. Yi Hongyi abruptly stood up and flung his sleeves towards the throne. The next day, when Yi Junqing found the abandoned residence in the eastern part of the city as described on the letter, he was surprised to see Wang Qinruo there. Empress Shu. Yi Junqing looked towards the woman sitting by the bed in shock. She was dressed in a plain white robe and her hair was tied up with white silk flowers. Her eyes were swollen like red peaches and her expression was tired as if she hadn't slept at all. Esteemed prince, please sit. Wang Qinruo gently tucked in the blankets before moving her gaze away from Wu Feng. Everyone in the palace is saying that Consort Shu killed her master and that His Majesty has ordered to kill anyone she sees. How much of this is true? Yi Junqing could tell with a single glance that the person on the bed was already dead, so he could more or less guess what had happened. Prince should know better than Qinruo. In that imperial palace, who can distinguish between what is real and what is fake? It's just like the Empress' death. Everyone thought it was a difficult birth, but was it really a difficult birth? Wang Qinruo smiled bitterly, then indicated for Yi Junqing to sit down. She poured a cup of water and pushed it over. You know how the Empress died? Are those rumors true? This was related to Yao Maxin's death. Yi Junqing abruptly stood up and looked towards Wang Qinruo nervously. His hands subconsciously balled into fists. He'd been investigating for the past few days, but other than the medical records from the Imperial Hospital, he didn't have any other evidence. The rumors aren't completely groundless. Wang Qinruo poured herself a cup of water. It was clearly colorless and tasteless, but she could taste the bitterness in it. Junqing begs Empress Shu to tell me the truth. Yi Junqing took a step forward and looked towards Wang Qinruo pleadingly. Qinruo can tell the esteemed prince everything, but the esteemed prince must guarantee that Qinruo and Wu Feng can safely leave the city. Yi Junqing might not believe her without any conditions. This prince will guarantee it with my life. Yi Junqing vowed solemnly as his eyes shone brightly. It's just as those rumors say. The Empress didn't die from a difficult birth. She was killed by someone else. Wang Qinruo's expression was solemn as she enunciated each word clearly. His heart hurt so much, as if someone had tossed him into a raging inferno. That burning pain quickly spread through Yi Junqing's entire body and seeped out from every pore. Who? Why did they kill her? The hoarse voice was low and heavy. Yi Junqing's pitch-black eyes were like two swirling whirlpools that seemed to want to swallow everything. Yao Suwan. The reason is very simple. She wasn't willing to be under someone else. She wanted to be the Empress, she wanted to get rid of Yao Maxin and replace her, said Wang Qinruo indifferently. It's her. Maxin is the Empress. His Majesty loves her so much, so what ability did Yao Suwan have to kill Maxin? Also, how did Maxin's child die? Tell me. Yi Junqing clenched his fists in grief and indignation. Qinruo doesn't know much. It's probably because Yao Suwan secretly took away the Empress' newborn child and lured the Empress to the cold palace where she was forced to sign a confession. Then Yao Suwan definitely threw the child to the ground. The Empress felt that she had let down her own flesh and blood, so she picked up the child and committed suicide. Although he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, he could imagine how tragic and bloody this scene must have been. How could it be like this? How could Ma Xin have died so tragically? Then what about His Majesty? Why didn't Your Majesty take revenge for Ma Xin? Why did you let Yao Suwan do this? Yi Juanqing's eyes were bloodshot and his lips were pressed into a thin line as he roared with all his might. Your Majesty only saw that one page of the confession and Yao Suwan's fabricated scene. Don't forget, the Empress committed suicide. If it wasn't because she felt ashamed, why would the Empress commit suicide? That's what most people would think. Wang Qinruo spoke as if it was only natural. How could Ma Xin commit suicide? How could that be? Yi Juanqing smashed his fists against the table fiercely. His handsome face was filled with unconcealable pain and heartache. Wang Qinruo had never known that the valiant and heroic esteemed prince of the past could actually cry. As she watched those sparkling tears fall, Wang Qinruo suddenly felt a bit envious of Ma Xin. Although she had died tragically, there was still a man in this world who truly loved her so deeply. In comparison, she was the one who was truly sorrowful. Mother and son are connected. It's not strange that the Empress would do something so extreme after seeing her child fall to his death, explained Wang Qinruo in a low voice as she lowered her eyes. There was no sorrow greater than a dead heart. Seeing one's own flesh and blood being thrown to death by the father of one's birth, not just Ma Xin, no one would have the courage to continue living. She understood Ma Xin's actions. It was laughable that she hadn't been the slightest bit vigilant despite knowing that Yi Hongyi had the heart of a wolf. Ma Xin. Ma Xin. Yi Juanqing's cold eyes overflowed with tears as he muttered Ma Xin's name with trembling lips. His heart felt like it had been pierced by a sharp knife and twisted. He was in so much pain that he wished he were dead. The Empress can die without regrets now that the esteemed prince knows her so well. When Wang Qinruo saw Yi Juanqing's pained expression, her tears silently fell. Who said that men didn't cry easily? That was only because they weren't deeply hurt. This prince won't let her die in vain. Yao Suwan. This prince will definitely make you pay with blood. The intense pain instantly ignited like the flames of hell. Every cell in Yi Juanqing's body was boiling. Wang Qinruo couldn't help but sigh as she watched Yi Juanqing leave. It's hard to avoid trouble if he leaves so impulsively, said Wang Qinruo slowly. Suddenly, a figure landed in front of her. Master naturally has a way to deal with this. The carriage and luggage have already been prepared. Master has instructed Lu Sha to escort Consort Shu safely to Mangyuan. That place isn't in Great Chu's territory, so it's relatively safe for Consort Shu, said Lu Sha respectfully. Noble Consort Yao is considerate. Help this consort help Fire Phoenix into the carriage. The wheels squeaked as they moved. Inside the carriage, Wang Qinruo gently stroked Fire Phoenix's forehead as tears silently slid down her cheeks. Chapter 219. Huifeng, this consort will definitely accomplish what I promised you. Now that we're about to leave the imperial palace, the people and matters there will no longer have anything to do with this consort. From now on, this consort will do as you said and return to being myself. Huifeng. This consort hopes that you can see all of this. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Wang Qinruo slowly hugged Huifeng in her arms as she sobbed. Inside Pure Flower's palace, Yao Suwan sat stiffly on a chair. Her eyes were piercingly cold and her heart felt like it was being clenched by someone. Right at this moment, Yi Juanqing suddenly appeared in front of her like a ferocious tiger descending the mountain. Yao Suwan. Why did you have to kill Ma Xin? She's your older sister. Why? Yi Juanqing glared at Yao Suwan with bloodthirsty eyes. His throat felt like it was being gripped by a sharp blade. Every time he moved, it felt like his throat was being scraped by a knife. Hidden beneath the sharp pain was extreme anger. Older sister. She's just a bastard. What right does she have to be this consort's older sister? What right does she have to be the empress? That position belongs to this consort. Yet she occupied it for so long. Yao Sulwan abruptly stood up, her sinister eyes flashing with a dark green light. You're admitting it. You're admitting that you took Ma Xin's child and personally threw him to his death. Yi Juanqing's rationality completely collapsed. The immense sorrow made him seem like a completely different person. Yes. I was the one who took that child. I was the one who threatened her to sign the testimony. I was also the one who personally threw that child to the ground, making him a bloody mess. Ugh! Yao Sulwan roared furiously. In the next second, Yi Juanqing's hand tightened around her throat. The suffocation came so suddenly that she didn't even have time to react before her body was suspended in the air. Return my Ma Xin. You deserve to die. Yao Sulwan, you truly deserve to die. Ah! Yi Juanqing's eyes were bloodshot. This was the first time he had acted against a woman, and also the first time he wanted someone to disappear from this world so badly. He tightened his grip around Yao Sulwan's neck, his eyes as cold as the wind. Just as Yi Juanqing exerted more force, a black shadow flashed by. In the blink of an eye, Yao Sulwan had already collapsed to the ground and was coughing violently. Meanwhile, Yin Shui was standing calmly in front of her. Out of the way. Yi Juanqing charged at Yao Sulwan like a mad lion, but Yin Shui stopped him. Master doesn't want Yao Sulwan to die. Wang Yi, please calm down. Yin Shui's expression was as calm as a lake, her voice solemn and firm. You know what she did. She killed her own nephew and forced her own sister to her death. If she didn't die, where was the justice in the world? How could Ma Xin's spirit be at peace in heaven? Yi Juanqing pointed angrily at Yao Sulwan, his eyes bloodshot. Bah! That kind of bastard isn't fit to be this consort's older sister. The child she gave birth to is also a bastard. Yi Juanqing, come. Kill this empress. If you dare to kill Ben Gong, that page of Yao Ma Xin's testimony will be seen by everyone. At that time, the illicit affair between you and Yao Ma Xin will be known by everyone. At that time, everyone would know that Yao Ma Xin wasn't fit to be the empress. She had an affair and even secretly had a vile spawn with you. She deserved to die. She's just a slut. Yao Sulwan roared crazily and laughed without restraint. However, hidden behind that laughter was a bone-piercing chill. Yao Sulwan. Yi Juanqing was so angry that he felt a fishy taste in his throat. He abruptly spat out a mouthful of blood that splattered all over Red Spider Lily. Wang Yi. Yin Shui hadn't expected Yi Juanqing to be this angry. She immediately sealed Yi Juanqing's acupuncture points, causing him to temporarily lose consciousness. Then she glanced coldly at Yao Sulwan before turning and disappearing from Pure Flower's palace with Yi Juanqing. You sure had a good time cursing. Are you satisfied now? Yao Mo leisurely walked out of the inner room, her clear eyes shining with a faint light. How did you know it was a hunchback? How did you know? The moment Yao Sulwan saw Yao Moan, she clenched her fists and smashed them against the ground. If Yao Moan hadn't threatened her, how could she have admitted to Yi Juanqing's accusations? How could she have taken all the blame? Wang Qinruo is very smart. That move of luring the snake out of its hole was indeed effective. Unfortunately, she didn't grasp the opportunity, which was why she'd used a Xiaoshanzi. Of course, the Xiaoshanzi was actually arranged by this consort. It was just to scare second older sister. Yao Moan walked over to Yao Sulwan with small steps. Her lips curved into a cold smile, making her look like the most terrifying Azura in hell. This consort did it so secretly, there's no way you could have detected it. Yao Sulwan looked towards Yao Moen in disbelief. As soon as the rumors had started spreading, she had contacted the person who had contacted her in secret to confirm the source of the rumors. Yao Sulwan had thought that she had done it flawlessly, but she hadn't expected that Yao Moen would still be able to find some clues. How difficult would it be to guess that hunchback? You're in the inner palace, so if you want to control the rumors, even if that person isn't someone from the palace, they're definitely someone who can enter and leave the imperial palace at any time. Furthermore, the palace maids and eunuchs have always been very loose-lipped. Adding on the fact that you've offended in Bingshan, you definitely can't use the palace maids or eunuchs just to be safe. As for the imperial guards and consorts, it's even more impossible. Aside from these people, there are only those few people who can enter and leave the imperial palace every day. It's impossible for the merchants and officials to check the accounts every month because merchants aren't reliable. Then there's only old Zhu San, who's in charge of the imperial palace's waste disposal. People call him Hunchback Zhu. Yao Moen replied coldly. This time, it was all thanks to Wang Qinruo. Otherwise it would have been very difficult for her to find out who Hunchback Zhu was. Now that she had this information on her, Ao Sulwan was like a puppet in her hands that she could manipulate. The fact that she had admitted everything in front of Yi Junqing was the best example. Yao Moen. You devil. You. Yao Sulwan wanted to curse, but Yao Moen grabbed her chin and forcefully lifted it up, forcing Yao Sulwan to look at her. That's right. This consort is a devil that will take revenge for eldest sister. Yao Sulwan, listen up. No matter how much you curse in your heart, don't let this consort hear it. Chapter 220. Replying Your Majesty, this subordinate is useless. I couldn't find consort Shu's whereabouts even after searching the entire city. Azure Dragon knelt on one knee with an ashamed expression. She's a living person, so why can't you guys find her? What have we been raising you guys for? At the crucial moment, all of you are so useless. Search again. No matter what, if she's alive, I want to see her. If she's dead, I want to see her corpse, shouted Yi Hongyi angrily as he stood up. Azure Dragon didn't dare to tarry and immediately left the imperial study. Once Azure Dragon left, Yi Hongyi fell back onto the dragon throne due to exhaustion. No, he couldn't just sit here and wait for death. If this matter was exposed, the person he hated the most would be Yi Junqing. Although Wang Qinruo was despicable, she was right about one thing: cut the weeds and eliminate the roots. He couldn't let Yi Junqing live in this world anymore. But how was he supposed to get rid of Yi Junqing? He needed to think about it properly. In the east wing of Guan Osprey Palace, Yi Junqing didn't know how long he had been unconscious. The moment he opened his eyes, there was only one thought in his mind: kill Yao Sulwan. Ah! Just as Yi Junqing was about to get up, he suddenly felt his entire body go limp. He didn't even have the strength to press his palms against the bed. Save it, you've been poisoned by bone-softening powder, so you won't be able to get up for now. Yao Moen walked over to Yi Junqing calmly. Bone-softening powder. It's you. Why? Yi Junqing looked towards Yao Moen angrily as he tried to prop himself up. Yao Sulwan can't die. Yao Moen got straight to the point. Do you know what she did? She threw Ma Xin's child to death and forced Ma Xin to death. She can't die. She should be hacked to pieces, said Yi Junqing angrily. His eyes were filled with killing intent. She has eldest sister's confession in her hands. As long as she dies, that confession will be made public to the world. At that time, the empress that the people of Great Chu revered the most would instantly become a slut that everyone would condemn. Is this what Prince wants to see? Yao Moen frowned as she walked to Yi Juanqing's side, her eyes filled with doubt. That was forced by Yao Sulwan. Yi Juanqing argued. Who knows? Yao Moen asked harshly. This prince, and you as well. Yi Juanqing's brows were tightly knitted together as great waves surged in his eyes. Your Highness is the person involved. Ben Gong is eldest sister's younger sister, and also a fool. Who would believe us? In the eyes of the world, an explanation is just a cover-up. There are some things that can only be covered up the more one tries to cover up. Eldest sister has already died very miserably. Could it be that you want eldest sister to be spurned by tens of thousands of people after her death? Said Yao Moen harshly, her every word piercing Yi Juanqing's heart like a hammer. Then what should we do? Could it be that they were going to let Yao Sulwan get away scot-free like that? This prince can't do it. Roared Yi Juanqing angrily. Unpunished. But why does Ben Gong feel like the current Yao Sulwan is living a life worse than death? Yao Moen pursed her lips slightly, a faint smile in her eyes. What do you mean? Yi Juanqing looked towards Yao Moen in confusion. Prince, think about it. How could a revered imperial Gui Fei be reduced to such a miserable state? Yao Mo said leisurely, the corners of her lips hooking up in a smile. It was done by you. Yi Juanqing furrowed his brows as he asked in a low voice. Back then, when Moen found out that Your Majesty held a grudge against Huan Heng, she guessed that Your Majesty would definitely use Huan Kaier to attack Huan Heng. As long as Huan Kaier did something immoral in the inner palace, Huan Heng would definitely give up his military power and beg for mercy for his daughter. At the time, the one who had the ability to deal Huan Kaier a fatal blow was Yao Sulwan. Because of this, Moen found a swindler called by Mei to trick the pregnant Yao Sulwan, saying that the child in her womb was eldest sister's reincarnation. Yao Sulwan had a guilty conscience and was blinded by greed, so she proposed to His Majesty to sacrifice the child in her womb to frame Huan Kaier. In the end, although Yao Sulwan aborted her child, Huan Heng found saffron in Pure Flower's palace. Yao Sulwan went for wool and came home shorn. She lost the title of Imperial Gui Fei and was demoted 2 ranks to consort, said Yao Moen calmly. You were the one who put the saffron there. Yi Juanqing looked towards Yao Moen in realization. Ben Gong's move could be considered as taking revenge for Ben Gong's little nephew. Later on, Yao Yu jumping into the lake was also Ben Gong's doing. The goal was to make Yao Sulwan break off relations with father. The court and inner palace have always been closely related. Without father's support, Yao Sulwan wouldn't have been able to accomplish anything. It was also because of this that she took the risk out of desperation and conspired with luminescent Prince Yi Zixiao to rebel. Although father was the only one who suffered from this rebellion, Yao Sulwan was still father's daughter. After this incident, Yao Sulwan could be considered to have completely lost the imperial favor. The smile on Yao Moen's lips deepened. These were only the 2 most unremarkable of her many plans. The reason she told Yi Juanqing about them was because she wanted him to understand that she had always been working hard for the sake of eldest sister's revenge. You already knew that Ma Xin was killed by Yao Sulwan. After hearing Yao Moen's words, the anger in Yi Juanqing's heart gradually subsided. In this moment, he finally understood why Yao Moen had always opposed Yao Sulwan ever since she entered the palace. What else? Could it be that you really think that Moen cares about some imperial favor? Yao Moen said disdainfully. How did you know? Why didn't you tell this prince? Yi Juanqing frowned in dissatisfaction. Moen heard about it from Do Xianglan. As for why I didn't tell Prince, it was because I was afraid that Prince would be as impulsive as today and end Yao Sulwan's life. If that really was the case, wouldn't Moen's hatred be satisfied? Yao Moen sighed inwardly, then got up to pour a cup of water for Yi Juanqing. That's right. People who committed heinous crimes shouldn't die so easily. However, you won't just let her off like this, right? Yi Junqing felt his mouth go dry, so he drank all the water Yao Moen handed him in one gulp. Of course not. It's just that before Moen finds a better way to tease Yao Sulwan, can Prince not interfere? Yao Moen took the empty teacup from Yi Junqing and asked this with a lift of her brows. All right. In the end, you're Ma Xin's younger sister, so it's only right that you take revenge. This prince will wait to see Yao Sulwan's retribution. Yi Junqing nodded fiercely, then sat up. Don't worry, Prince. Moen will definitely do everything I can to satisfy Prince. Yao Moen's eyes curved, finally making Yi Junqing give up on pursuing for now. However, after this time, Yi Hongyi would definitely make a move, so they could only be careful. Ever since Wang Qinruo left, Yi Hongyi had become depressed and the number of times he went to Guan Osprey Palace had decreased. Yao Moen also found peace. It was rare that she didn't have to put on an act, so she was happy to be at ease. However, after a few days of peace, great waves were stirred up again. Inside Guan Osprey Palace, Yao Moen was currently sitting on the swing, swaying back and forth. The autumn wind blew her long, ink-like hair. Occasionally, a few fallen leaves would fall on her shoulders, adding a hint of haziness to her beautiful face. Your Highness, Huanheng wishes to see Your Highness. He says it's an extremely important matter. As usual, Yin Shui floated down next to Yao Moen, even lighter than the fallen leaves. It's an extremely important matter. Go and arrange it. Midnight, Pleasant Arrival Tavern, Sky Character Room 1, instructed Yao Moen in a low voice. A ripple appeared in her heart. That night, the crescent moon hung in the sky like a bow. The stars and the surroundings shone with a gloomy light. All of Chang and Street was indescribably desolate. As the wind blew past, it gave off a desolate feeling. When Huanheng appeared in front of Yao Moen with a worried expression, Yao Moen had already been sitting at the table for a long time. She was still dressed in plain clothes with a black veil over her head. Old General Huan is so anxious to see Jing Axian. Is there something important? Asked Yao Moen when she saw the worry in Huanheng's eyes. Chapter 221. If this old man remembers correctly, Miss once said that as long as this old man followed Miss wholeheartedly, you would ensure the safety of this old man and my family. Huanheng looked towards Yao Moen solemnly. Jing Axian did say that. What kind of trouble has old General Huan encountered? Yao Moen pondered inwardly. Right now, the court was peaceful and there were no external battles, so Huanheng shouldn't be in any danger. It's not this old man, it's this old man's daughter. Recently, Kair secretly sent this old man a message saying that His Majesty wants to send Kair to Lulan with the esteemed prince. Miss isn't an ordinary person, you should be able to guess His Majesty's intentions, said Huanheng anxiously. His Majesty wants Consort Qin to leave the capital with the esteemed prince. Yao Moen furrowed her brows in shock. It seemed that she had guessed correctly. Yi Hongyi was preparing to make a move. If it wasn't a matter of life and death, this old man wouldn't dare to disturb Miss so easily. Huanheng looked towards Yao Moen pleadingly. Old General Huan means that His Majesty wants to use Consort Chen's life to get rid of the esteemed prince. If Consort Chen doesn't return from Lulan, then it would mean that Yi Junqing didn't protect her well enough. Yao Moen hadn't expected that Yi Hongyi had hidden this information so well. She hadn't heard anything about it before. Other than this possibility, this old man really can't think of a better reason. These are troubled times. Of the 4 noble consorts, 3 are either dead or gone. Now, it's this old man's daughter's turn. Huanheng's expression was worried as he sighed sorrowfully. That's easy. As long as Consort Chin pretends to be sick, she'll be able to avoid this calamity. Yao Moen's eyes turned as she thought of a plan. Easier said than done. The imperial physicians of the imperial hospital aren't freeloaders. If His Majesty finds out, Kair will inevitably be charged with deceiving the monarch. At that time, won't she still have to die? Huan Heng disagreed. Aren't the imperial doctors in the imperial hospital freeloading? Old general, don't worry. Leave this matter to Jing Axian. Jing Axian guarantees that your precious daughter will stay in the imperial palace safely. The corners of Yao Moen's lips lifted slightly. Since she clearly understood Yi Hongyi's intentions, she naturally had a way to deal with it. Is Mrs. Words true? Huan Heng looked towards Yao Moen suspiciously, still worried. If you say so, you'll definitely be able to do it. His firm voice gradually calmed Huan Heng's anxious heart. When they returned to Guan Osprey Palace, Yao Moen knew that this matter couldn't be delayed, so she had Yin Shui secretly make a trip to Moon Crossing Pavilion. The next morning at breakfast, Yao Moen looked at Yi Junqing, who was sitting next to her. I heard that Prince is going on a diplomatic mission to Lulan. Yao Moen picked up some food absent-mindedly as she looked away from Yi Junqing. How did you know? Yi Junqing looked towards Yao Moen in shock. Then it's true. It must have been hard for Moen to treat Prince as a friend and tell you everything she knows. But does Prince place Moen in your heart? Yao Moen sighed lightly as the light in her eyes dimmed. Then, she put down her chopsticks with an expression of extreme disappointment. Ahem. You don't seem to be able to say everything you know. Yi Junqing felt guilty and retorted in a low voice. When Yao Moen heard this, she got up to leave, but Yi Junqing persuaded her to stay back. This prince wanted to tell you, but His Majesty said that this mission is very secretive and the fewer people who know, the better. Ever since he found out that Yao Moen had entered the palace to get revenge for Ma Xin, Yi Junqing's attitude towards Yao Moen gradually changed from being forced to compromise to actively expressing goodwill. Why? Yao Moen narrowed her eyes as she looked towards Yi Junqing suspiciously. This. Yi Junqing hesitated. If you don't want to say it, then forget it. Yao Moen was instantly annoyed and wanted to leave again. Have you ever heard of Vic Mountain? Yi Junqing deliberately lowered his voice as he asked this question suspiciously. Vic Mountain. That's within the borders of Lu Shan country. Why are you suddenly bringing it up? Yao Moen slowly sat back down and frowned as she looked towards Yi Junqing in confusion. According to His Majesty's secret envoy's report, Vic Mountain contains a large amount of iron ore, so much so that it's impossible to estimate. Moreover, this mountain stretches for several hundred li and borders the borders of Shu, Yu, and Qi. The news says that Chu Mabe and Feng Yihan have already left for Lulan. They must have received this news as well, so they want to discuss this matter with King Lulan. His Majesty's intention is for this prince to go to Lulan and negotiate for the rights to mine the iron ore at the border between Vic Mountain and Great Chu, said Yi Junqing solemnly with a serious expression. Iron ore. Yao Moen's clear eyes lit up and her cherry lips subconsciously curved in a greedy smile. Vic Mountain was several million times larger than Linxi. If there really was iron ore there, then wouldn't they be rich? If you can't get fat in one bite, don't even think about it. King Lulan is famous for his shrewdness. He's not as generous as Feng Yihan. Yi Junqing reminded Yao Moen in jealousy. Moen just likes shrewd people. Yao Moen's lips curved into a smile. It's useless even if you like him. His Majesty doesn't plan on letting you go with this prince this time. If you just rely on Lightning Rush, you probably won't even be able to see King Lulan, said Yi Junqing indifferently, but he was a bit disappointed. His Majesty is letting Huan Kair go with Prince. Yao Moen lifted her brows as she looked towards Yi Junqing with interest. Is there anything in this world that you don't know? Yi Junqing looked towards Yao Moen in astonishment. Don't worry, Huan Kaier has contracted an infectious disease. It'll probably be difficult for her to even leave Moon Crossing Pavilion now. Yao Moen looked towards Yi Junqing confidently. That can't be. This prince just ran into Consort Chen in the Imperial Garden yesterday. Although she seemed a bit tired, she didn't show any symptoms of an illness. Yi Junqing looked towards Yao Moen. That's because Moen only received the news last night. Yao Moen didn't hide the reason at all. Yi Junqing was speechless. The corners of his lips twitched and black lines appeared on his forehead. There was no doubt that this was Yao Moen's doing. However, when Yi Junqing thought about how Yao Moen would be accompanying him on this trip, a faint feeling of joy flashed through his heart. Even he himself didn't notice it. How could that be? He's second older sister's witness, how could Moen bear to kill him? I'm just finding a place for him to stay, replied Yao Moen absent-mindedly. She slowly walked to the table and sat across from Yao Suwan. Yao Moen, you can't beat His Majesty. He's not as useless as you think. Yao Suwan looked coldly at Yao Moen. After calming down these past few days, she finally understood that from the beginning, Yao Moen's goal had been revenge. It was her carelessness that caused her to suffer such a crushing defeat. Of course, His Majesty is so shrewd that he actually allowed Moen to accompany the esteemed prince on a diplomatic mission to Lulan. Furthermore, he promised that after this trip, he would make Moen empress. Second older sister, the thing that you've spent your entire life chasing is easily obtained by Moen. Say, don't you think that the heavens are very unfair? Yao Moen's cherry lips lightly pursed, her eyes smiling. Yi Hongyi, that idiot. He actually wants to make you empress. Yao Suwan stood up agitatedly and glared at Yao Moen. That's right, that idiot thinks that Moen likes the throne of empress so much. He even promised to build a palace that's even more luxurious than Changle Palace for Moen. Unfortunately, he doesn't know that what Moen truly wants isn't some empress position, but his throne. Yao Moen's voice gradually grew colder and her eyes shone with cold light. How could he make you empress? How could he? Back then, he was the one who promised Ben Gong that as long as Yao Moxin died, the throne of empress would be Ben Gong's. Why? Why would he treat Ben Gong like this? Yao Suwan frantically tore at the silk on the chaise lounge as her eyes turned crimson. Yao Moen watched coldly as Yao Suwan grumbled and cursed, a trace of coldness flashing through her heart. Yao Suwan, this is your retribution. You can't blame anyone. Retribution. Every man for himself, heaven and earth will destroy him. What's wrong with Ben Gong planning for myself? It was Yao Moxin who was stupid. It was her who showed off in front of His Majesty, causing His Majesty to be unable to tolerate her and that child. But what did Ben Gong do wrong? Why does His Majesty treat Ben Gong like this? Why? Yao Suwan's eyes were about to split open as she charged in front of Yao Moen. Eldest sister isn't stupid, she's just misplaced her life. The one who's truly stupid is you, second older sister. You should have realized that from the moment Yi Hongyi had you participate in plotting against eldest sister, he already had killing intent. Let me ask you, who likes the feeling of having their weakness caught by others, let alone a dignified monarch of a country? Said Yao Moen coldly as she looked towards Yao Suwan. Ben Gong didn't have a choice. Yao Suwan howled in grief. You can choose. If you had told eldest sister what you know, everything would have been different. Said Yao Moen coldly as she gripped Yao Suwan's wrist. Pa! Even if Ben Gong dies, I won't tell that lowly concubine. Yao Suwan looked towards Yao Moen with a sinister expression. Then second older sister can just wait to die. Yao Moen remained calm as her lips curved in a mysterious smile. Don't even think about it. Ben Gong won't die just like this. I definitely won't. Yao Sulwan laughed madly as tears flowed uncontrollably from her eyes. All right. Then Moen will give second older sister a chance. This trip to Lulan has lasted for over a month. In this 1 month, Moen would like to see what second older sister can do to save yourself, said Yao Moen coldly before getting up to leave Pure Flower's palace. Once she left Pure Flower's palace, Yao Moen summoned Yin Shui. Have Lu Sha stay behind and secretly monitor Yao Sulwan. As long as she doesn't go overboard, let her do as she pleases, said Yao Moen indifferently. Master, this subordinate doesn't understand. Yao Sulwan is already at her wit's end, so why are you still giving her hope? Asked Yin Shui in confusion. Only when there's hope will there be despair. Yao Sulwan doesn't deserve to live so leisurely. Furthermore, the more Yao Sulwan pleases, the more uneasy Yi Hongyi will be. Ben Gong truly hopes that in this 1 month that they'll be able to create even more spectacular sparks. Yao Moen smiled as a cold light flashed through her eyes. That night, when Huan Heng saw Yao Moen, he immediately knelt to kowtow. What is the meaning of this, old general? Yin Shui, quickly help old general up, said Yao Moen indifferently. This old man thanks Miss Jing Axian for saving my life. I never would have thought that Miss Jing Axian would actually have such extraordinary abilities that her influence has spread throughout the inner palace. This time, His Majesty switching noble consort Yao out at the last minute is truly unexpected. It's just my daughter's illness. Huan Heng hesitated in his gratitude. Chapter 223. Old General, don't worry. In 10 days, Consort Chen's symptoms will disappear. Yao Moen knew that Huan Heng was worried about Huan Kaier's health. That's good. Very good. Huan Heng nodded firmly and let out a long sigh. Yao Moen couldn't help but sigh when she saw the relief in Huan Heng's eyes. As a father, Huan Heng's love for his daughter was something Yao Jinting would never be able to learn. After everything was settled, Yao Moen left the imperial city with Yi Junqing without any worries. In order to keep it a secret, Yi Hongyi only assigned his 4 bodyguards to Yi Junqing. They left the city at 5 in the morning and didn't make a sound. However, because Yao Moen was with them, their speed naturally slowed down. After the autumn rain last night, the air was especially refreshing. The smell of the earth in the air was especially refreshing, so people couldn't help but take a few more breaths. Noble consort Yao, we still need to hurry on. Please return to the carriage. In the forest, Yao Moen's arms were spread out as she faced the sky and took deep breaths. She seemed to be enjoying herself. Azure Dragon Guard, please understand. My lady imperial concubine has been sitting in the carriage for several hours and the journey has been very bumpy. It's not easy for her to come out to loosen her muscles and bones. Please wait a little longer. At the side, Tingyu walked over to the Azure Dragon Guard and begged obediently. But Azure Dragon looked towards Yao Moen awkwardly before sighing and returning to Yi Junqing's side. Prince, how about you go and persuade Her Highness? She's already been standing there for 2 hours. Said Azure Dragon helplessly. Do you think she'll listen to this prince? Yi Junqing was also a bit speechless. Although he knew that Yao Moen wouldn't delay their journey for no reason, she should at least give him a heads up first. If Her Highness continues to be so willful, I really don't know when we'll reach Lulan. Azure Dragon turned to look at Lady Chu, Vermilion Bird, and Black Tortoise. The 3 of them seemed even more irritated than he was. After about another hour, Yi Junqing finally couldn't hold himself back anymore and walked over to Yao Moen. You've already been like this for 3 hours. Aren't you tired? You should at least walk a bit. When his gaze landed on Yao Moen's face, he was shocked to see that beads of sweat had already appeared on that alluring face. Do you think I want to? My legs are numb. Yao Moen's voice contained a hint of anger. When Yi Junqing heard this, his lips couldn't help but twitch. Right at this time, Azure Dragon and the others suddenly surrounded Yao Moen and looked around vigilantly. Alright, look at how anxious you guys are. This consort will just leave. Yao Moen pinched her throat as she spoke. Taking advantage of the fact that the four of them had their backs to her, she began to pound her legs furiously. Your Highness, it looks like we can't leave. Who is it? Come out. Azure Dragon's eyes were cold as he roared. Almost at the same time, more than 10 masked men in black suddenly appeared in the forest and surrounded Yao Moen and the others. Who are they? Asked Yao Moen in a trembling voice as she tugged on Yi Junqing's sleeve. Prince, leave this place to us. Please take Her Highness and leave first. We'll chase after them later. Qing Long and the other three immediately took out their weapons and stood in front of Yao Moen. Be careful. Yi Junqing nodded fiercely before pulling Yao Moen onto the carriage. Ting Yu naturally jogged after them. Hiya. While Yi Junqing was driving the carriage away, Azure Dragon and the others were already fighting with the masked men. Even after they left the forest, Yi Junqing still didn't see any black-clothed men chasing after them. Naturally, Azure Dragon and the others were nowhere to be seen either. Instead, an uninvited guest had arrived. Although Yi Junqing agreed with Yao Moen's words, Azure Dragon and the others were still His Majesty's personal bodyguards. Don't worry, we just need to leave a secret signal for Azure Dragon and the others. As for speed, those black-clothed men will take care of it. Yao Moen smiled lightly as she spoke confidently. Yi Junqing was speechless. No one could stop Yao Moen from doing what she wanted to do. Also, without Azure Dragon and the others, Yi Junqing felt much more at ease. It was just as Yao Moen had said. Every time Azure Dragon and the others were about to catch up to them, those black-clothed men would suddenly appear. After a round of fighting, they would have to find another secret signal and continue chasing. The darkness of the night was as cold as water. The fire in the depths of the forest flickered, creating a moving scene. Next to the fire, Yi Junqing skewered the snake meat with a bamboo stick and slowly roasted it over the fire. The fragrance quickly wafted into Yao Moen's nose. It smells so good. Your cooking skills aren't bad. Yao Moen looked at the golden snake meat over the fire and instantly felt hungry. Yi Junqing smiled lightly, then handed the bamboo stick skewered to Yao Moen. Chapter 224. It's not one bit inferior to the imperial chefs. Yao Moen confirmed. Mo Xin has also praised this prince like that, but unfortunately. Yi Junqing's lips were slightly pressed together. The light from the flames seemed to light up his clear eyes, creating a stark contrast with the desolate expression on his face. Yao Moen was slightly shaken. How could she have forgotten that this wasn't the first time she had eaten snake meat personally roasted by Yi Junqing? When she had gone to Shu to negotiate, she had already tasted it. Damn it. Whenever Yao Moen thought of Shu, she couldn't help but think of Chu Mabei's devilishly handsome face. His slight smile made it seem like the entire world was within his calculations. Who deserves to die? Yi Junqing turned to look at Yao Moen. Chu Mabei. I have a feeling that the reason Chu Mabei has personally come this time isn't just for those iron mines in Vic Mountain. That sly and crafty fellow. If it's possible, I don't want to see him ever again. Yao Moen took a huge bite of the snake meat as if it had been cut from Chu Mabei's body. See him again. You've seen Chu Mabei before. Yi Junqing's eyes narrowed slightly as he grew suspicious. Of course I haven't. I've only heard eldest sister mention this person. Eldest sister said that this person is her nemesis for life. He's sinister, cunning, and full of tricks. A magnanimous person like me naturally wouldn't want to have dealings with someone like that. Yao Moen realized that she had misspoken and immediately tried to explain. Is that so? But this prince feels that this person's true nature is much better than those hypocrites, said Yi Junqing disappointedly. He really is a vile person. Yao Moen corrected him inwardly. Right at this time, there was a gust of wind and Yin Shua appeared next to Yao Moen. Reporting to Master, Ben Lei has already set off from Mong Yuan with wind, rain, thunder, and lightning. They'll reach Lulan in half a month at the soonest, reported Yin Shua solemnly. Half a month. That's faster than us. Have them enter Yedu first when they arrive and find a place to stay. This consort will meet up with them later. Yao Moen's eyes shone brightly as she instructed indifferently. Yes. Yin Shua accepted the order and left so quickly that it was as if she had never appeared. Why did you send Ben Lei to Lulan? It couldn't be that you're planning on taking the iron mine, right? Yi Junqing looked towards Yao Moen in disbelief. The listener has a share. Since this consort knows of this news, there's no reason for this consort to do nothing. Furthermore, there's so much soup, so Moen won't mind taking a sip. Yao Moen's cherry lips curved into a faint smile. Stop dreaming. King Lulan has always schemed against others. He's never been able to get away empty-handed, said Yi Junqing disapprovingly. Moen isn't just anyone. Yao Moen moved closer to Yi Junqing and looked towards him mysteriously. Then who are you? Yi Junqing couldn't help but choke when he saw those crafty eyes twinkling like stars. Every time Yao Moen revealed this kind of gaze, it meant that someone was going to be unlucky. Who would it be this time? Could it be King Lulan? I'm not telling you. Yao Moen suddenly withdrew her gaze and opened her mouth to take a bite of the snake meat. I'm Ma Xin. Yao Moen's heart ached slightly. If you don't want to tell me, then forget it. This prince will use these eyes to see just how capable you are, said Yi Junqing angrily. Then he handed the roasted snake meat to Yao Moen. It took a total of 20 days to travel from the imperial city of Great Chu to the country of Lulan. To Yao Moen, these 20 days were the happiest period of time since her rebirth. She treasured and was grateful for every second she spent with Yi Junqing. This subordinate Qing Long kowtows in salute to prince and noble consort. Before entering the city, Qing Long and the others finally caught up to Yao Moen and Yi Junqing. When Yi Junqing saw the dark circles around their eyes, sallow complexions, and protruding cheekbones, Yi Junqing felt a little guilty. Where did you guys run off to? This consort and prince have waited for you so many times. His Majesty definitely doesn't know that your legs aren't good, otherwise he definitely wouldn't have let you guys follow. Yao Moen lifted her brows and pouted as she looked at the 4 people in front of her. At the side, Yi Junqing's lips curved slightly as he subconsciously glanced at Yao Moen. He admired her inwardly. How could she say something that went against her heart without even blinking? When the 4 people heard this, they immediately wiped at their sweat. At this time, Yao Moen and the others were walking on the busiest street of Lulan's capital city, Yi City. There was a sea of people and an endless stream of horses and carriages. On both sides of the street, there were tea houses, taverns, pawnshops, and workshops. There were all kinds of things being sold. There was silk, tea, grapes, jewelry, everything that one could think of. It was a scene of prosperity. The way the people of Lulan dressed was especially different from the way the people of the Central Plains dressed, which was simple and plain, gentle and generous. The women's clothes were mostly red and pink, and everything else was bright and gorgeous. Young girls who were about to be married wore white veils to add a sense of mystery. But what shocked Yao Moen the most wasn't the prosperity of Yi City, but the familiar figure in front of her. Yi Han. Yao Moen ran over in pleasant surprise, but she only saw a flash of cold light. Fortunately, Yi Junqing had stepped forward in time to protect Yao Moen. Otherwise, Ting Feng's sword would have taken Yao Moen's life. Ting Feng, stop. When Feng Yihan heard this, he turned around. Against the light, his imposing figure seemed to glow like a god. His bright phoenix eyes shone with a dazzling light the moment he saw Yao Moen. Noble consort Yao. Esteemed prince. I didn't think you'd come so quickly. Feng Yihan walked over to Yi Junqing, his eyes shining like stars. That's right. Warner also didn't think I'd see you here. Yao Moen pushed Yi Junqing aside and walked over happily. Yihan didn't know that noble consort Yao would come, otherwise I would definitely have carried Si Qing over to relieve your highness of the pain of lovesickness. Feng Yihan's eyes glowed as he locked onto the woman in front of him. The pain of lovesickness finally turned to dust. Reporting to noble consort, this subordinate should escort you back to the guest house first. When Qing Long saw that Yao Moen and Feng Yihan were intimate, he immediately walked forward and spoke respectfully. No wonder I didn't see you guys. So you guys just entered the city. King Lulan has already prepared goose houses for Qi, Shu, and you. Ting Feng, bring these people back to the guest house first. We want to catch up with the esteemed prince and noble consort Yao. Yes. This way please. Ting Feng accepted the order and walked over to Qing Long and the others. But Qing Long looked towards Yi Junqing awkwardly. You guys return to the guest house first. It's fine with this prince here. Yi Junqing nodded slightly. Qing Long had no choice but to leave with his subordinates and follow Ting Feng. Yao Moen only sighed in relief when Qing Long and the others disappeared into the crowd. Then she looked towards Feng Yihan. I hadn't expected that old thing King Lulan would actually arrange for the nobles of the three countries to stay in the same guest house. This isn't a good sign. A gentle smile appeared in Yao Moen's eyes as her lips curved in a mysterious smile. We'll deal with it as it comes. No matter how hard King Lulan is to deal with, it's just that his conditions are a bit harsh. Let's not think about this for now. Yihan will take you to eat. Feng Yihan's bright eyes flickered with a gentle light as he looked towards Yao Moen. Ahem. There's still a living person here. It's broad daylight, you guys should pay attention to your status. Yi Junqing's expression gradually turned serious as he watched Feng Yihan continue to hold Yao Moen's hand. Pay attention to my status. Yao Moen abruptly turned around and pulled Yi Junqing over with her other hand. Her cherry lips were as dazzling as a peach blossom. You. Hurry and let go. Yi Junqing was shocked and really wanted to shake off Yao Moen's hand. Perhaps it was because the commotion would be too big, but it immediately attracted everyone's attention. Chapter 225. Show. This is Lulan, there's no need for Prince to stand on ceremony. Let's go. Yihan came a few days earlier, so I know a good place. Feng Yihan looked towards Yi Junqing with a faint smile before letting go of Yao Moen's hand and leaving first. Let's go, this isn't Guan Osprey Palace. Yao Moen smiled meaningfully before pulling Yi Junqing along. Just as the three of them passed by Four Seas Casino, they suddenly heard a commotion inside. Yao Moen was startled and immediately pulled on Feng Yihan. It seems that there are quite a few familiar faces here. Yao Moen's lips curved slightly as she walked into the casino first. Feng Yihan and Yi Junqing looked at each other in dismay, then followed in. At this time, Four Seas Casino had already descended into chaos. Everyone was gathered in the center to watch the commotion. Yao Moen followed everyone's gaze and a knowing smile appeared on her face. You bunch of swindlers. Bullying this prince for not being from Lulan. Juanxiu, smash this lousy place for this prince. Chu Maxin stood arrogantly in front of the overturned gambling table. His eyes were as sharp as bells and his voice was arrogant and domineering. Young master, your words are a bit too far-fetched. In the entire Four Seas casino, there are no more than 10 or 20 true Lulan citizens. Most of the people here are foreign merchants and nobles from various countries, so how could I be biased? Besides, this lowly one is running a proper business. I don't cheat anyone or anyone. Look at these dice, they're as good as real. The dealer on the other side scowled miserably as he presented the dice to Chu Maxin with both hands. Who wants to see it? If this prince says this place deserves to be smashed, then it deserves to be smashed. Do it, shouted Chu Maxin loudly as he flung the dice away. Just as Huangfu Juanxiu was in a dilemma, a young girl wearing a white veil suddenly walked in. Uncle Tala, what happened? The clear and melodious voice was like that of an oriole. The woman skipped away from the dice on the ground and walked in front of the dealer. She touched the dealer's bitter face with her fair hands, trying to smooth Tara's tightly furrowed brows. Sunshine Princess. Sunshine Princess, you have to speak up for Ta La. This young master is saying that Ta La is a scammer and wants to smash Ta La's place. The dealer clasped his hands together as he complained bitterly. Uncle Ta La, don't worry. Sure will judge for you. The young girl patted Tara's shoulder in a comforting manner before walking over to Chu Maxin. Are you the one who said that Uncle Tara runs a shady shop? The girl's clear eyes were like the full moon in the sky, pure and elegant, clear and translucent. Yes, this king said it. What's wrong with that? Chu Maxin lifted his brows as he looked at the girl in front of him. Beneath his crescent-shaped eyebrows, his eyes blinked as if they could speak. Of course it's wrong. You need to apologize to him, said the girl with a pout as she looked at Chu Maxin. Are you crazy? What kind of logic is that? Of. Smash. Of Ling Lan of Yun to of you're a bad person, so you should be punished by God. The girl threw away the ball of water and clapped her hands in laughter. Her voice was like the sounds of nature, and only her eyes were exposed, but her beauty was enough to topple a city. Chu Maxin glared at the girl's unbridled mockery and clenched his fists tightly. If it weren't for the fact that he didn't hit women, he would have already punched her. At this moment, the hair on Chu Maxin's forehead was dripping with water and he looked to be in an extremely sorry state. Preposterous. Smash smash smash. Hurry up and destroy this place for this king. Chu Maxin flew into a rage, his voice booming like a bell. Little prince really doesn't know how to have tender and protective feelings for the fairer sex. That girl was just joking with you, why are you so serious? Yao Moen walked through the crowd towards Chu Maxin. Seeing that it was Yao Moen, Chu Maxin suddenly turned and hid behind Huangfu Juanxiu. Don't come over. Hurry and leave. Hurry and take this prince away. Chu Maxin pulled Huangfu Juanxiu with extreme fear and disappeared from Four Seas Casino in the blink of an eye. In the center, Yao Moen froze on the spot. Her lips twitched and 3 black lines appeared on her forehead. Did she just see a ghost? This brat. Big sister is so amazing. The bad guys were scared off as soon as they saw Big Sister. On the other hand, the girl next to her happily grabbed Yao Moen's arm and jumped up and down in joy. How could Big Sister be as amazing as you? What was that just now? Yao Moen restrained the helplessness in her eyes and turned to hold the girl's hand as she asked softly. That's called a water bowl. It's very soft and there's a small hole on it. As long as you press it lightly, water will shoot out. Imperial father made a lot of them for Zhu'er. Does big sister like them? Asked the girl childishly. I like them. Yao Moen nodded. Dage, bring another one over. When Yao Moen nodded, the girl had already taken a water ball from a nearby maid and handed it to Yao Moen. Zhu'er will give big sister one. It's very good for self-defense. Every time Zhu'er uses this, those bad guys will run away, said the girl firmly. Later, Yao Moen found out that this so-called water ball was specially made by King Lulan for his own daughter. As long as the entire country of Lulan saw this water ball, no matter how big of a turtle they ate, they would swallow their anger and retreat. You're called Zhu'er. Yao Moen remembered that the banker had referred to the girl in front of her as the Sunshine Princess. If she guessed correctly, this girl was probably King Lulan's most beloved daughter. Yes, I'm called Kubu Zhu'er. My imperial father is called Kubu Dan, but everyone calls him King Lulan, replied Kubu Zhu'er seriously. Princess, we should go. If we return late, His Majesty will be worried again. Yao Moen still wanted to ask more questions, but Dage walked over and reminded her in a quiet voice. And, big sister, then Zhu'er will leave first. Goodbye, big sister. Kubu Zhu'er waved Yao Moen goodbye and skipped away. This is the legendary Sunshine Princess. But the rumors say that the Sunshine Princess is an idiot, but now it seems that she's just a little naive. She can't be called an idiot, right? Said Feng Yihan leisurely as he walked over to Yao Moen. For someone born in the imperial palace to be naive, wouldn't that make them idiots? Since the Sunshine Princess is like this, it can only be said that King Lulan has protected her too well. However, this kind of protection might not necessarily be a good thing for the Sunshine Princess. Yao Moen sighed inwardly as a trace of sadness flashed through her eyes. Chapter 226. Older sister Moen, this prince has been waiting for you for a long time. Why did you only come back now? Just as Yao Moen was sighing, Chu Maxin ran out in a sky-blue robe to greet Yao Moen happily. Yao Moen was speechless. All of the emotions on her face disappeared as she walked past Chu Maxin without looking sideways and walked straight into the guest house. Older sister Moen, wait for this prince. Seeing that Yao Moen was ignoring him, Chu Maxin immediately chased after her. Who are you? Does this consort recognize you? Yao Moen looked towards Chu Maxin blankly. This prince is Chu Maxin. Frosty Prince of Shu. Me. Chu Maxin pointed at his own face as he spoke anxiously. Sorry, I don't remember, said Yao Moen coldly. Just as she was about to walk away, Chu Maxin pulled her back. How could I forget? Look at these clothes, you were the one who made them for this prince. Also, when we were at the gambling house, you even talked to this prince. Chu Maxin got more and more anxious as he spoke and accidentally mentioned the gambling house. You also remember this consort talking to you at the gambling house. Then why did you run? Why? Tell me. Yao Moen flew into a rage like a dog whose tail had been stepped on. Why are you so fierce? This prince just didn't recognize you. Chu Maxin had never seen Yao Moen with such a furious expression before and immediately became listless. Then why do you have eyes? You didn't recognize me. Only a ghost would believe that, said Yao Moen hatefully. I just didn't recognize you, muttered Chu Maxin as he hung his head, his voice filled with grievance. Then I'm sorry, this consort didn't recognize you either. Go away. Yao Moen's anger hadn't subsided yet and she immediately pushed Chu Maxin away to leave. If you want to go away, then go away. Why are you being so fierce? Chu Maxin glared at Yao Moen angrily before returning to his room. Behind him, Yi Junqing and Feng Yihan looked at each other. They both felt that going forward right now wasn't a good idea, so they turned and allowed the servants to lead them back to their rooms. The moment Yao Moen stepped into the room, Huangfu Juanxiu followed her in. Shu's subject Huangfu Juanxiu kowtows in salute to noble consort Yao. When Yao Moen saw that it was Huangfu Juanxiu, she turned to look at Tingyu in annoyance. Tingyu, this consort doesn't know him. Send the guest away. Tingyu knew that her master was acting in a fit of pique, so she deliberately slowed down to give Huangfu Juanxiu a chance to speak. Juanxiu knows that your highness is angry, but your highness has misunderstood little prince. The reason little prince ran out of the gambling den was because he didn't want your highness to see him in such a sorry state. After coming back from the gambling den, not only did little prince take a bath, he even forcefully put on his wet clothes. Then he stood under the sun for a whole 4 hours before his clothes dried, said Huangfu Juanxiu truthfully. Lord Huangfu, please. After Huangfu Juanxiu finished getting to the point, Tingyu pointed at the door, indicating for him to leave. Wait, why is he wearing wet clothes under the sun? Yao Moen looked towards Huangfu Juanxiu suspiciously. Because your highness personally made those clothes for him. Little prince knew that the color of the fabric would be damaged if he were to use fire, so he used the stupidest method possible. Your highness, little prince really cares about your highness, said Huangfu Juanxiu earnestly. Yao Moen felt like her heart had been stung by something. She immediately got up to look towards Huangfu Juanxiu. Lead the way. When Huangfu Juanxiu heard this, he naturally understood that Yao Moen was looking for his master, so he immediately turned to lead the way. Outside the room, Yao Moen took a deep breath, then knocked on the door. Before she could knock a second time, she heard a loud bang. Scram! Don't bother this prince. When Yao Moen heard Chu Moxin's thunderous voice, she felt a trace of helplessness. She hadn't had the chance to take care of De Zhonger, so she wouldn't understand the feelings between mother and son. She also hadn't expected that she would be so important in Chu Moxin's heart. Little prince, great Chu's noble consort Yao has come to see you, reported Huangfu Juanxiu in a low voice with an awkward expression. When Huangfu Juanxiu finished speaking, the room suddenly fell silent. After about the time it took to make a cup of tea, the door suddenly opened. Chu Moxin glared at Huangfu Juanxiu, clearly annoyed that he had spoken up too late. What? Do you still plan on not acknowledging this consort? Yao Moen pursed her lips into a smile. Who's not acknowledging you? You're clearly not acknowledging this prince, muttered Chu Moxin as he turned to walk back into the room. Yao Moen followed him in. She noticed that there was a puddle of water on the ground, but she didn't see the shattered porcelain pot. Chu Moxin had probably been tidying up the broken pieces in the time it took to make a cup of tea. Yao Moen's guess was confirmed when she saw Chu Moxin's bleeding finger. How did this happen? Let this consort have a look. Yao Moen frowned and reached out to pull Chu Moxin's finger, but he dodged her. This is nothing, just a small matter, said Chu Moxin proudly as he puffed out his chest. Even a small matter won't do. Hand it over. Yao Moen walked over to Chu Moxin fiercely. She ignored Chu Moxin's struggles and pulled him to a seat. Fortunately, there was a white gauze and ointment in the room. Even after Yao Moen finished bandaging Chu Moxin's finger, Chu Moxin didn't dare to say another word. Why aren't you saying anything? Yao Moen finally realized that the room was completely silent. She lifted her brows and looked towards Chu Moxin. Why didn't I realize that you were this fierce before? Men don't like fierce women. You need to be careful, said Chu Moxin as he looked towards Yao Moen seriously. The veins on Yao Moen's forehead bulged and her face darkened. Actually, why did you come to Lulan? Yao Moen restrained the anger in her eyes and looked towards Chu Moxin warmly. According to the secret envoy's intelligence, the one who should have come to Lulan should have been Chu Mabe. Moreover, with Chu Mashin's personality, how could he possibly win against the experienced and far-sighted King Lulan? Eldest brother told me to come. Chu Mashin looked at the white gauze wrapped around his finger as a hint of light flashed through his eyes. Your eldest brother actually didn't come himself for such an important matter. Yao Moen furrowed her brows as she looked towards Chu Mashin in confusion. Can't this prince do something important? Chu Mashin immediately lifted his eyes and looked towards Yao Moen angrily. Cough cough. That's not what I meant, explained Yao Moen guiltily. That's what you meant. However, eldest brother didn't say that there was an important matter here. He only said that the women of Lulan look like goddesses and wanted this prince to take a look. However, this prince doesn't think that they're as pretty as eldest brother says, muttered Chu Mashin. Women. Yao Moen's eyes narrowed in contemplation, then she suddenly understood. Although Chu Mabe's wishful thinking was brilliant, whether it would succeed or not would depend on the will of the heavens. That night, when Ben Lei came to the guest house to look for Yao Moen, he just so happened to run into Yi Junqing, who had just pushed open the door. Long time no see, busy man. Yi Junqing looked coldly at Ben Lei, who had just jumped down from the roof. His voice was very unfriendly. Even though his relationship with Yao Moen was no longer as incompatible as fire and water, Yi Junqing still took Ben Lei's betrayal to heart. Prince. This subordinate kowtows in salute to Prince. As Ben Lei spoke, Yi Junqing suddenly heard a sound. He immediately ordered Ben Lei to enter his own room and close the door behind him. Chapter 227. On the jadeite table, the candles on the glazed table flickered, and the fragrance of incense rose in spirals. Yi Junqing lifted his brows as he looked towards Ben Lei, who was kneeling on the ground. You've already retired and are not considered this king's subordinate, so there's no need for such formalities. In Ben Lei's heart, His Highness will always be the master. Ben Lei knelt devoutly in front of Yi Junqing. He was extremely excited. It had been a long time since he last saw Master after returning to the imperial city of Great Chu. This prince cannot accept it, unless you tell this prince, what exactly does Yao Moen want to do? Linshi already had a lot of iron ores, so why did she still covet Vic Mountain's iron ores? If she can't get fat in one bite, then how is she going to digest all that iron? This was something that Yi Junqing had never been able to understand. Since Ben Lei's bow has caused Prince to feel a lot of pressure, then Ben Lei has been impolite. Yi Junqing's question was too tricky, so Ben Lei had no choice but to stand respectfully at the side. You. Just as Yi Junqing was about to explode in anger, the door suddenly opened and Yao Moen walked in. There's no one in this world who's afraid of money biting their hands. If Moen has the ability to hoard iron ore, then she also has the ability to find buyers. If Prince wishes to know anything, you can directly ask Moen. Don't make things difficult for Ben Lei. Yao Moen reflexively glanced at Ben Lei. She was extremely satisfied with his performance. This prince doesn't care about knowing. Yi Junqing glanced at Yao Moen resentfully. If Prince doesn't want to know, then please take a walk outside. Moen still has important matters to discuss with Ben Lei, suggested Yao Moen. This is this prince's residence. Yi Junqing's eyes widened as he reminded Yao Moen out of goodwill. Azure Dragon and the others are nearby. If they see Moen walking around the inn with Ben Lei, wouldn't it be bad? Of course, if Prince is interested in Moen's matter, you can also stay. Moen wouldn't mind. Yao Moen didn't wait for Yi Junqing to respond before sitting down at the table. Who's interested? When he got up and passed by Ben Lei, he warned him angrily, next time, find the right place. As he watched Yi Junqing leave, Ben Lei knelt on the ground with a thud. Ben Lei kowtows to thank Master for his grace. Back then, when Yao Moan had found Ben Lei, she had said that everything she had Ben Lei plan in Mong Yuan was to prepare for Yi Junqing's ascension to the title of emperor in the future. As long as you don't feel wronged. Yao Moan pursed her lips. In terms of kindness, she still owed Yi Junqing more. As long as it's for the good of His Highness, Ben Lei will not hesitate to go through water and tread on fire. Ben Lei said resolutely. I know of your loyalty. Otherwise, I wouldn't have left the matters of Mong Yuan to you. Back to the main topic, I asked you to bring the wind, rain, thunder, and lightning to Lulan Kingdom for the iron mine at Vic Mountain. Now that the envoys of Yu, Shu, and Qi have all arrived, I'm sure that King Lulan will bring up his conditions very soon. At that time, we'll wait for an opportunity to act and fight for a share of the spoils with these three countries, instructed Yao Moan. This subordinate obeys. Ben Lei cupped his fists and accepted the order. Just as Yao Moan expected, the next day, when King Lulan sent people to post the announcement in the guest house, everyone in the guest house had ugly expressions on their faces. By the will of the heavens, the emperor has decreed that Vic Mountain is rich in iron. Today, we are willing to share the iron mine with the neighboring countries. We will abide by the principle of the highest bidder winning. In addition, if any of the envoys can gain the favor of the Sunshine Princess, we are willing to give 3,000 iron mountains to you free of charge. King Lulan, they still have the nerve to say that they will share. Ting Feng looked at the announcement and said angrily. May I ask, sir, what does it mean by the highest bidder winning? Huangfu Juanxiu slowly walked to the side of the Lulan guard who was dressed strangely. It's very simple. Even if the iron mine is close to Great Chu, if Shu is willing to pay a high price, then the iron mine will naturally go to the highest bidder, explained the Lulan guard. That's interesting. However, since the iron mine is close to Great Chu, they naturally won't allow Shu to send troops over to mine it, right? Huangfu Juanxiu frowned as he continued to speak. Sir, don't worry. His Majesty has thought of this a long time ago. As long as Sir is willing to pay, Lulan will naturally send people into the mountain to mine it. They will also be responsible for transporting it to Shu. That way, there won't be any conflict between the two countries. Everyone sighed at the Lulan guard's explanation. King Lulan calls this sincerity. If he had said that it would be a trade, we wouldn't have rushed all the way here, said Feng Yihan angrily. King Qi, there's no need to be anxious. The announcement clearly states that if the Sunshine Princess of Lulan favors them, King Lulan will give 3,000 iron mountains to you free of charge, explained the Lulan guard. So King Lulan was ostensibly inviting the nobles of the three countries to discuss the iron mine, but in reality, he was looking for a son-in-law, said Yi Junqing leisurely. Everyone could see the true intention of the announcement and agreed with Yi Junqing's words. No matter what, the announcement has already been made. Tomorrow, King Lulan will personally escort the Sunshine Princess to the guest house. Farewell. The Lulan guard turned to leave. Inside the guest house, everyone had their own thoughts, but no one left. This prince should have known that Lulan is so poor that all they have left is money. Why would Kubu Dan care about those iron mountains? We really shouldn't have made this trip. We'll head back tomorrow, complained Yi Junqing. That's not entirely true. King Lulan is spending so much to choose a son-in-law, so it's clear that he dotes on the Sunshine Princess a lot. No matter who marries the Sunshine Princess, they'll have King Lulan as their backer. Also, Prince has seen the Sunshine Princess before. The Sunshine Princess can be considered a celestial beauty. Moan advises Prince to consider it carefully. Even if she's as beautiful as a celestial fairy, this prince won't take a second look. You should know this. Yi Junqing's tone was fierce. That's why it's said that love really is harmful. Eldest sister has already been dead for so long, why hasn't Prince untied the knot in your heart? Said Yao Moan carelessly, but a strange feeling flashed through her heart. Yao Moan. Yi Junqing glared at her angrily. Forget it. Even if Prince doesn't want to marry her, we still can't leave. Yao Moan returned to the main topic. Why? Yi Junqing looked towards Yao Moan in confusion. Of course it's to stop the Sunshine Princess from falling into the hands of Qi and Shu. Why else do you think they haven't left yet? Also, just because Great Chu doesn't have a chance doesn't mean this consort doesn't have a chance. Yao Moan's lips curved into a smile. The moment she saw the announcement, Yao Moan knew that her chance had come. You think the Sunshine Princess would like Ben Lei? Yi Junqing didn't believe it at all. Why wouldn't she? Yao Moan's smile became even stranger, causing Yi Junqing to break out in a cold sweat. The next day, when King Lulan pulled his most beloved daughter, the Sunshine Princess, to the guest house, everyone was blinded by the golden light King Lulan was wearing. Does he have to be so ostentatious? Shouldn't a person be low-key? Yi Junqing used his hand to shield his eyes as he commented speechlessly. But King Lulan really doesn't have a reason to be low-key. Moan isn't worried about anything else, but wearing a pair of shoes made of pure gold, aren't they heavy? Yao Moan was truly worried for this old man who was over 50 years old. Chapter 228. Habit becomes second nature, said Feng Yihan emotionally as he shielded his eyes from the sun. If he had been the one to do this, he might not have been able to stand so steadily. Kubu Dan is very grateful that everyone has traveled thousands of miles to come to my Lulan kingdom. I'm sure everyone has seen the contents of this announcement. Now, we will ask the Sunshine Princess to stay for 10 days. After 10 days, whoever the Sunshine Princess chooses will be the owner of the 3,000 iron mines. His deep voice was firm but not sharp. The elder gently stroked his golden beard and narrowed his eyes slightly. His sharp gaze swept over everyone in front of him. However, when he saw Yao Moan, his gaze paused for a moment before returning to normal. Sure, take off your veil. Kubu Dan turned to look towards his daughter and said dotingly. Why? Didn't Imperial Father say that Zhur isn't allowed to take off her veil before she gets married? Kubu Zhur's childish voice sounded like the sound of nature as she looked towards her Imperial Father with twinkling eyes. That's the custom of our Lulan country, but you're not facing the people of Lulan right now, so you have to follow their custom and be obedient. Kubu Dan caressed his daughter gently, his eyes filled with love. N. Kubu Zhur nodded as if she understood, then slowly took off her veil. At this moment, everyone's gazes were attracted by Kubu Zhur's beauty. Even though there was such a dazzling ingot of gold standing next to her, no one could bear to block their eyes. Although the girl in front of them was only 12 or 13 years old, her face was as beautiful as a fairy's. Her fine, black hair fell to her shoulders and glowed brilliantly under the sunlight. Her flawless white skin was like a freshly peeled egg, so tender and smooth that it seemed like water was about to drip out. Under her slender brows, her eyes twinkled as if they could speak. A pair of dimples were evenly distributed on both sides of her cheeks. When she smiled lightly, the dimples would appear faintly, adding a hint of naughtiness and mischievousness to her. She was as cute as a fairy. This kind of girl was as beautiful and elegant as a moon fairy. It was no wonder that King Lulan doted on her so much. If she had a daughter like this, she would definitely do her best to give the best things to her, Yao Moan thought. Dage, take good care of the princess these few days. Don't let anything happen to her. King Lulan nodded slightly when he saw everyone's surprised gazes. An indescribable light flashed through his eyes. He gave Dage a few instructions before turning around and leaving. Imperial Father. Kubujur was just about to turn around and chase after him when Dage stopped her. Princess, look, it's that bad guy. As soon as Dage said this, Kubujur immediately turned around and looked in the direction Dage was pointing at. She saw Chu Machine standing there with a dark expression on his face. Enemies on a narrow road. This was exactly what Chu Machine was feeling right now. Why are you here? Kubujur clearly had a very bad impression of Chu Machine. At this moment, Huangfu Juanxiu, who was standing behind Chu Machine, had a dark expression on his face. If he had known that this would be the result, he wouldn't have allowed the little prince to go to some gambling house. Now that it looked like those 3,000 iron mines were going to be ruined, and now that things had developed to this point, they could only wait and see if the crown prince could win by a surprise move. What's wrong with me being here? I'm right here. Chu Machine looked at Kubujur arrogantly, but in the next second, he felt his entire body turn cold. When he lowered his head, he saw that his entire body was soaked in water. The way Chu Machine puffed up his cheeks and spat out water from his mouth was especially hilarious. Little shrew. This prince will fight it out with you. After being tricked twice by Kubujur, Chu Machine's dignity had taken a huge hit. Prince, you mustn't. When Huangfu Juanxiu saw that Chu Machine was about to rush forward, he immediately pulled him back and tried to persuade him. It's great that you're here. This princess didn't know how to spend the next 10 days, but now that you're here, I won't be lonely anymore. Kubujur skipped over to Chu Machine. Her large, elfin eyes narrowed slightly as her peach-colored lips slowly curved into a meaningful smile. Once Kubujur left, Dage also walked over to Chu Machine. Little brother, you're out of luck. Dage looked at Chu Machine sympathetically before chasing after him. They dare to threaten this prince. Huangfu Juanxiu, let go of me. Let go of me, roared Chu Machine angrily as he kicked in the direction Kubujur had gone. At this moment, everyone in the guest house was dumbstruck. Kubujur's expression just now was definitely the complete opposite of her fairy-like appearance. Everyone sighed. As expected, the difference between a fairy and a devil was just a single thought. This prince isn't seeing things, right? Asked Yi Junqing as he subconsciously rubbed his eyes. It seems like the next 10 days won't be easy for little prince. Yao Moan's heart was filled with pity as she looked at the drenched Chu Machine. Just as Yao Moan expected, the night Kubujur arrived, she requested to have a meal with everyone in the guest house. In the guest house's main hall, all sorts of delicacies had already been laid out. Yi Junqing, Yao Moan, Feng Yihan, and Chu Machine were all present, so Kubujur was the only one missing. Yihan has a feeling that we won't be able to stop this meal. Feng Yihan glanced at the awkward Chu Machine and his lips curved slightly. He had no intention of marrying Kubujur, so he had no intention of currying favor with her. The only reason he had stayed was because he wanted to know the final outcome. Little prince, since you're already here, you might as well take things as they come. It's just a meal, you can't be afraid, right? Yao Moan looked towards Chu Machine gently as she comforted him. Would this prince be afraid of her? What a joke. When he heard Yao Moan say this, Chu Machine immediately dispelled any thoughts of leaving and sat down. Behind him, Huangfu Juanxiu looked towards Yao Moan gratefully. He told himself that before the crown prince arrived, there couldn't be any more trouble. Right at this moment, Kubujur walked in from the door. Kubujur was currently dressed in the simple attire of a man from the Central Plains. She was wrapped in a blue robe, had fine brows, phoenix eyes, a fine nose, and cherry lips. Her ink-black hair was tied up with a strand of white silk and she held a folding fan in her hand. She walked with the air of a distinguished young master. Zhe has been impolite, I've made everyone wait for a long time. Zhe twirled the folding fan in a circle before fastening it to the jade belt at her waist. Then she walked to her seat. When she saw the table full of delicacies, her expression instantly darkened. There's food but no wine, how disappointing. Dage, have them bring 10 jugs of the best daughter's red in here, ordered Zhe loudly. Dage's attire was naturally no different from his master's. He was also dressed in the attire of a man from the Central Plains. When he heard his master's order, not only did Dage not dissuade her, he even asked if 10 jugs was too little. At the side, Yao Moen's cherry lips parted slightly as she looked towards the master and servant pair in disbelief. Were they going to defy the heavens? If she had a choice, she would rather the bright sun princess be as foolish as the rumors said. Perhaps that would be easier to deal with. As they looked at the 20 jugs of daughter's red in front of them, everyone's hearts felt a little heavy. Zhe knows that the customs of the Central Plains are to make friends with wine. It's truly an honor for Zhe to be acquainted with everyone today. Let's not waste any more time. Zhe will first toast 3 bowls to show my sincerity. While Zhe was speaking, Dage had already had the servants open the jugs of wine and place large porcelain bowls in front of everyone. Then he filled them up. When Yi Junqing saw Zhe drink 3 bowls on an empty stomach without even blinking, he couldn't help but sigh. His alcohol tolerance wasn't bad, but in front of Zhe, he had to admit defeat. Why aren't you guys drinking? You're not trying to deny it, are you? Zhe put down the porcelain bowl and looked towards everyone suspiciously. You were the one who said to drink 3 bowls first, what does that have to do with us? Said Chu Machine angrily with a cold harumph. Of course it has to do with you guys. This princess will drink 3 bowls first, after that, it's your turn to drink 3 bowls. You couldn't be afraid, so you don't dare to drink, right? You didn't dare to say so earlier. This princess never makes things difficult for people, especially children. Zhe glanced at Chu Machine and lifted her brows in disdain. Chapter 229. Who's a kid? Who wouldn't dare? Isn't it just 3 bowls? This prince will accompany you to the end. How could Chu Machine take this kind of provocation? He immediately gulped down 3 bowls. During the meal, Yi Junqing and Feng Yihan glanced at each other, then drank 3 bowls as well. Because there were servants standing behind them, they couldn't force the alcohol out immediately. Moen has never been a good drinker. Please forgive me, princess. Yao Moen admitted that she didn't have Zhe's tolerance for alcohol, so she stood up and spoke respectfully. Zhe knows big sister. Since big sister doesn't like to drink, then forget it. When Zhe looked towards Yao Moen, a hint of a smile flashed through her eyes. Yao Moen saw it very clearly. That smile was as brilliant as a flower and incomparably sincere. Moen thanks princess for your understanding. Yao Moen knew when to stop. Now it seemed that apart from herself, the other 3's prospects were ominous. There's no point in drinking like this. Why don't we play a finger-guessing game? Dage, fill it up. Zhe suddenly stood up and stepped on the chair with 1 foot. She rolled up her wide sleeves and yelled loudly. Bring it on. Who's afraid of who? After 3 bowls, Chu Machine was immediately in high spirits and echoed. Yi Junqing and Feng Yihan really wanted to maintain their gentlemanly demeanor, but Zhe had forced them into a corner, so they could only follow suit. Only Yao Moen was sober when everyone else was drunk. Yao Moen couldn't help but sigh as she looked at the chaotic scene in front of her. Fortunately, she had performed outstandingly at the Four Seas Casino. Otherwise, the consequences would have been unimaginable. After 2 hours, only 5 of the 20 jars of daughter's red remained. During this time, Yi Junqing and Feng Yihan had wanted to force the alcohol out while they were relieving themselves, but every time they went out, Kubu Zhe would send 2 servants to follow them, so they had no way of doing it. Nyang Nyang, the esteemed prince seems to have drunk too much. Tingyu leaned over and whispered in Yao Moen's ear. Yao Moen nodded slightly, then moved closer to Yi Junqing. On the other side, Chu Maxin was playing finger-guessing with Kubu Zhe while gulping down large mouthfuls of wine. Feng Yihan had already fallen asleep on the table. Junqing. Yao Moen's heart ached as she looked at Yi Junqing, whose face was completely red. She really wanted to help him leave, but the banquet hadn't ended yet, so leaving first would be rude. Mo Axian. Maxin, you're finally willing to appear. Do you know how much this prince missed you? The moment he saw Yao Moen, Yi Junqing's hazy eyes glistened and tears fell soundlessly down his face. I'm Moen, not Maxin. When Yao Moen saw the tears in the corners of Yi Junqing's eyes, she felt like her chest was being blocked by a ball of cotton wool, making it hard for her to breathe. Mo Axian, I'm sorry. I didn't know that you would die so miserably. It's my fault, I didn't protect you properly. I'm sorry. Yi Junqing took Yao Moen's hand as tears rolled down his cheeks. Junqing, how much longer are you going to blame yourself for? Maxin's death has nothing to do with you at all, so why must you confine yourself in this cage? Yao Moen didn't struggle out of Yi Junqing's grasp and her eyes became misty. It's my fault. Maxin, don't leave me again. Don't. Yi Junqing unconsciously collapsed onto the table. When he closed his eyes, his tears fell onto Yao Moen's palm. I won't leave you again. Yao Moen's lips moved as tears welled up in her eyes. Her heart was in extreme pain. Ugh, right at this time, Chu Maxin suddenly put down his wine bowl and vomited. When Yao Moen heard this, she turned around and discovered that Kubu Zhe had already disappeared. The only people left were these men lying unconscious on the table. Juanxiu, hurry and help the little prince back to rest. Ting Feng, help Qiwang back as well. Remember to cook some hangover soup. Tingyu, come over and help. After Yao Moen gave this order, she and Tingyu helped Yi Junqing back to his room. On the bed, Yi Junqing furrowed his brows in pain as he muttered Yao Maxin's name in his sleep. Yao Moen ordered Tingyu to go to the kitchen to cook some hangover soup while she sat on the side of the bed. Her heart ached as she looked at Yi Junqing's pained expression. She couldn't help but reach out to soothe his frown. However, the moment her skin touched his, Yi Junqing tightly gripped her hand once more. Maxin, it's good that you're back. Don't leave again. Yi Junqing unconsciously begged as his thick eyelashes became moist. After leaving the room, Yao Moen sighed and smiled bitterly. Everyone said that getting drunk could solve 1,000 worries, but after sobering up, would those worries no longer bother people? If not, then why would people lie to themselves? Just as Yao Moen was about to return to her room, she suddenly saw a familiar figure sitting alone in the nearby hallway. Under the moonlight, that elegant face seemed to be coated in silver light. It was so beautiful that it was captivating. Princess has good alcohol tolerance, praised Yao Moen as she slowly walked to Kubu Zhe's side. Kubu Zhe was speechless as she quietly looked at the stars in the sky. After a long time, she finally turned her gaze to Yao Moen. Does older sister really think that Zhe has a good alcohol tolerance? Kubu Zhe's eyes were clear and bright, as resplendent as the stars in the sky. Could it be that it's not? Yao Moen's heart trembled slightly as she looked towards Kubu Zhe in confusion. Of course not, all Zhe drank was water. She's just pretending. However, what they drank was daughter's red that had been brewed for 50 years. It's the best wine. The more Kubu Zhu said this, the more Yao Moen found it inconceivable. She was just a 13-year-old child, but her acting skills were so good that even she didn't suspect that 5 out of the 20 jars of daughter's red were actually water. Why did Princess tell Moen? Aren't you afraid that Moen will tell others? Yao Moen looked towards Kubu Zhu with interest as her lips curled into a smile. You won't. But even if you tell others, what can they do to this princess? Ha! Kubu Zhu raised her head to look at the sky again, her eyes dimming slightly. Actually, if you don't want to get married, you can just tell King Lulan. With how much he dotes on you, he definitely won't force you, said Yao Moen gently as she saw through Kubu Zhu's thoughts. It's precisely because Imperial Father dotes on me that I don't want to go against his wishes. Furthermore, everything Imperial Father does is for Zhu to have a perfect life. Kubu Zhu lifted her legs to the railing and wrapped her arms around her calves. She leaned her head against her knees as her eyes sparkled. Could it be? Yao Moen was shocked when she heard this. Deep heartache welled up in her eyes. Although Imperial Father hides it very well, Zhu knows that from the day she was born, she contracted a strange illness and was destined to not live past 15. It's just that Imperial Father doesn't understand that Zhu doesn't want a perfect life. Zhu just wants to be with Imperial Father. Imperial Father likes Zhu's innocence, so there's nothing wrong with Zhu trying her best to act like an idiot. However, this time, Imperial Father is determined to get Zhu married. What should I do? Older sister, Zhu doesn't want to leave Lulan. Even if I die, Zhu wants to die here. The childish voice was filled with sorrow that even Yao Moen couldn't bear. When Yao Moen saw the sorrow in those eyes, she reached out to tuck in Kubu Zhu's fluttering long hair. Believe in older sister. Older sister will do everything in her power to keep Zhu alive. Zhu will be able to stay happily in Lulan and stay by King Lulan's side. Yao Moen's voice was powerful and clear. But what should I do? Zhu already doesn't have any expectations. Everyone was so emotional tonight. When Yao Moen saw the tears in Kubu Zhu's eyes, she couldn't help but cry. The heavens were jealous of a beauty, but Zhu was still just a child. When she returned to her room, Yao Moen immediately summoned Yin Shui and ordered her to make a trip to Lulan Imperial Palace and investigate everything related to Kubu Zhu. Since she had given Kubu Zhu hope, she would do everything in her power not to disappoint her. Yi Junqing finally woke up at noon the next day. He had already completely forgotten about last night's events. Prince, you're awake. Tingyu heard the commotion and entered the bedroom. She saw Yi Junqing rubbing his forehead as he shook his head. Chapter 230. How much did this prince drink last night? Yi Junqing got off the bed and walked over to the table to pour himself a cup of tea and gulp it down. Quite a bit. 5 jars of daughter's red. Prince drank until your mind was muddled. You insisted on dragging my Nyang Nyang to sleep with you, replied Tingyu casually. PFFF, cough cough cough. What did you say? This prince's mind was muddled to that extent. Yi Junqing abruptly spat out the water in his mouth as he stared at Tingyu with wide eyes. That's right. If my Nyang Nyang hadn't bitten your hand, you wouldn't have let go even if you said you'd die, reported Tingyu as she removed the breakfast from the tray. When Yi Junqing heard this, he reflexively looked down and saw the 2 rows of teeth marks on the back of his hand. Ahem, your Nyang Nyang really could do it. Alright, you can leave. Yi Junqing's face turned red and he quickly dismissed Tingyu. If Prince has any instructions, this servant will wait outside. Tingyu knew that she had achieved her goal and didn't say anything else. Just as she was about to leave, Yi Junqing called her back. You don't need to serve your master, asked Yi Junqing suspiciously. My master went out with the Sunshine Princess early in the morning and hasn't returned yet. How did she hook up with the Sunshine Princess? Yi Junqing was shocked. Perhaps Yao Moen really might be able to swindle those 3,000 iron mines out of them. Forgive this servant for being bold, but the Sunshine Princess is innocent and naive while my master is gentle and kind. How could Prince use the word hook up when they're together? Muttered Tingyu unwillingly. Innocent and naive. Gentle and kind. Who are you talking about? Yi Junqing looked towards Tingyu in confusion. Tingyu was speechless. Outside the guest house, the moment Yao Moen and Ku Bu-zhu entered, they saw Chu Maxin running over while rubbing his forehead. Older sister Moen, this prince was looking for you. Why are you with her? Chu Maxin had originally come for Yao Moen, but when he saw Ku Bu-zhu, he instantly went on guard like a fighting cock. Why can't older sister be with this princess? Before Yao Moen could say anything, Ku Bu-zhu walked over to Chu Maxin and lifted her delicate little face arrogantly. You can't. As Chu Maxin said this, he tried to pull Yao Moen away. Unexpectedly, Ku Bu-zhu grabbed Chu Maxin's outstretched hand and stood in front of him, blocking his path. This princess insists on staying with Big Sis. What are you going to do about it? Ku Bu-zhu looked towards Chu Maxin with an evil smile. The water ball behind her was already raring to go. Forget it. Little prince, go back first. Moen will come find you in a bit. Okay. Yao Moen was afraid that Ku Bu-zhu would act willfully again and again, but not again. If the water ball in Ku Bu-zhu's hands landed on Chu Maxin again, Yao Moen really couldn't guarantee that Chu Maxin wouldn't flip out. Humph. If you're on good terms with her, then don't come looking for this prince. Yao Moen couldn't help but purse her lips as she watched Chu Maxin fling his sleeves and leave. You're already so old, yet you're still jealous. You're just like a child. Ku Bu-zhu returned to Yao Moen's side and commented on Chu Maxin in a serious manner. He's just a child. Yao Moen looked towards Ku Bu-zhu with a smile. That's right. He still has a chance to grow up. A hint of darkness flashed through Ku Bu-zhu's elf-like eyes. Then, she brought Dage back to her room. Her heart ached faintly as if it was being lightly poked by a silver needle. That pain gradually spread throughout her entire body. When Yao Moen pushed open the door and walked into Chu Maxin's room, Chu Maxin was angrily swinging his teacup. When he saw Yao Moen, he immediately turned around. Little prince, if you're going to ignore me, then Moen will leave. Yao Moen turned around tentatively and looked at Chu Maxin with interest. You're clearly the one who's ignoring me, yet you're still trying to blame it on this prince. When Chu Maxin saw that Yao Moen was about to leave, he immediately turned around and angrily rebuked her. She's a young lady, so you should at least let her have her way. Yao Moen smiled as she sat down next to Chu Maxin and poured him a cup of tea. Young lady. Have you ever seen a young lady drink 5 jars of daughter's red? Which young lady dared to splash water on this prince more than once? Chu Maxin was getting more and more angry. Ahem. Little prince, did you have something urgent to discuss with me just now? Yao Moen couldn't help but cough. Indeed, using the word young lady to describe Ku Bu-zhu was a bit biased. I was so angry at you that I forgot. Oh, right, big brother is coming, said Chu Maxin excitedly. Yao Moen was shocked when she heard this. She subconsciously tightened her grip on the teapot. You don't seem happy, asked Chu Maxin suspiciously when he saw that Yao Moen's expression was strange. This is truly a delightful piece of news. What is he here for? Could it be that he wants to marry the Sunshine Princess as the Crown Prince's consort? Happy. The duck that was about to fall into her hands was suddenly snatched away by someone else. What reason did she have to be happy? There's no way Big Brother would like that little shrew. The only person in this world that's worthy of Big Brother is already dead. But don't be discouraged. You're Big Sister Machine's younger sister, so perhaps Big Brother will look up to you, said Chu Machine as if he was trying to throw himself at her. There's really no need for this consort to look up to him. Yao Moen was extremely speechless. Anyone who caught the eye of that god of plague would definitely die a horrible death. That's because you've never seen Big Brother. In this world, any woman who has seen Big Brother before would be completely smitten by him, said Chu Machine solemnly. More like scared out of their wits. You still haven't told me what he's here for, asked Yao Moen solemnly, returning to the topic at hand. Of course it's for those 3,000 iron mines. Shu has a strong army, but they're lacking in weapons. Big Brother definitely won't give up on the iron mines here. Chu Machine didn't hold back at all. Although Yao Moen still wanted to ask about some of Great Shu's secrets, she felt that it wouldn't be very kind, so she held back. Does he have a better plan besides marrying Zhao Yang Princess? Yao Moen seemed to be testing him. This prince doesn't know, but Big Brother won't easily make a move. Chu Machine looked towards Yao Moen. Yao Moen completely agreed with this point, but she was sincerely praying that Chu Mabe would suffer a crushing defeat this time. After leaving Chu Machine's room, Yao Moen went straight to Yi Junqing's room. You're awake. When Yao Moen saw Yi Junqing sitting alone in the main hall and looking at the letter in his hands with a serious expression, she walked over and glanced at the paper. His Majesty clearly knows that this prince's heart belongs to someone else, yet he still wants this prince to marry Zhao Yang. Yi Junqing tore the paper apart in anger as a cold light flashed through his eyes. That's not necessarily the case. Didn't the paper say that it would be the same if Prince could stop someone else from marrying Zhao Yang? Yao Moen slowly sat down in front of Yi Junqing. How could this prince stop someone else from marrying Zhao Yang? Yi Junqing didn't think much of it. Prince might not be able to, but Moen will definitely be able to. Prince doesn't need to worry about this, said Yao Moen confidently. Chapter 231. How could this prince have forgotten? You're drooling over those 3,000 iron mines. Yi Junqing trusted Yao Moen. If she said it was possible, then it was definitely possible. Unknowingly, Yi Junqing's trust in Yao Moen had already disappeared. Moen isn't the only one drooling over it. Chu Mabe is coming. Yao Moen sighed heavily as her eyes darkened. This isn't good news. Yi Junqing's impression of Chu Mabe had never been good. Right at this time, Yin Shui suddenly appeared in the main hall. What did you find? Yao Moen's eyes brightened when she saw Yin Shui. Reporting to Master, this subordinate found that the Sunshine Princess has been afflicted with a strange disease called a blood clot ever since she was born. This disease is extremely rare and has only been recorded in the book Ghost Path from 300 years ago. The person afflicted with this disease will have all the blood in their body gradually coagulate over time until it stiffens and breaks. During this period of time, if they consume blood celery, they'll be no different from a normal person before the disease flares up. However, blood celery doesn't cure the root of the problem. If the patient suddenly flares up, there's no way to save them. However, there's a prescription recorded in this book, reported Yin Shui. Is it a prescription to cure blood clot? Asked Yao Moen impatiently. Yes, it's written on the prescription that as long as the pearl of the Eastern Sea, the coral of the Western Sea, the dragon of the Southern Sea, and the mermaid of the Northern Sea are gathered and fed with the blood of resurrection, this disease will be cured, continued Yin Shui. Yin Shui, your storytelling skills are getting better. If you don't become a hidden guard one day, you'll definitely be able to make a fortune with this ability. Yi Junqing nodded approvingly. Prince is flattering me. However, what Yin Shui said is the truth. In Lulan Imperial Hospital, there is a medical center that specializes in researching for blood clots. Not only does it contain personal records of Kubu Zhuer's physical condition from birth to now, it also contains information on blood clots. This is especially true since it's filled with strange treasures from the sea. This subordinate is stupid and can't tell what those things are, said Yin Shui. There's no need to look to know that those things aren't what King Lulan is looking for. Otherwise, it wouldn't be placed there. Yao Moen's expression was grave. She had never heard of the things in that prescription before. No wonder Kubu Zhuer had said that she had no expectations. Are you telling the truth? The Sunshine Princess actually had such a strange disease. How is this possible? When Yi Junqing saw that Yin Shui had no intention of teasing him, he frowned deeply. Every time he thought about how such a fairy-like girl would shatter like a crystal, he couldn't help but feel stifled. When has Prince ever seen Yin Shui joke around? Yin Shui, leave for now and secretly ask the Yin clan for help in finding out more about the recipe. Yao Moen leaned weakly against the chair, her heart aching inexplicably. She was going to give up just like this. She couldn't do it. The Eastern Sea has a jade blood pearl and the Western Sea has a blood coral. There are traces of those too, but dragon mermaids are legends, so how are we going to find them? Especially the resurrection blood. I really don't understand how Gue Daozi, as a doctor, could come up with such nonsense. Yi Junqing's brows were tightly furrowed as his hands instinctively clenched into fists. That might not be the case. Since Gue Daozi said it, then it means that these 5 things definitely exist in this world. However, these rare things can only be found by chance. Even if we were given 10 years, we still might not be able to find them. A trace of sorrow flashed through Yao Moen's eyes. That night, with the morning breeze and waning moon, a shrill cry suddenly rang out in the quiet guest house. Princess! What's wrong? Someone come. Something's happened to the princess. Dage's voice rang out from the guest house. Everyone rushed to Kubu Zhuer's room. What happened? Yao Moen was the first to rush into the room. When she saw Kubu Zhuer lying on the couch with a deathly pale complexion and her arms stiff and veins popping out, Yao Moen's heart felt like it had been thrown into a deep, cold lake. Even though she had already mentally prepared herself, Kubu Zhuer's sudden illness still made her cry. Older sister, don't cry. Zhuer knew that this day would come. Thankfully, Zhuer is still in Lulan. On the couch, Kubu Zhuer smiled delicately. Her eyes shone resplendently and she was so beautiful that she didn't seem like a mortal. Have you been poisoned? Juanxiu. Hurry and bring this prince's 100-herb pill. Hurry and go. When Chu Maxin saw Kubu Zhuer's bloodshot arms, he immediately panicked and ordered sternly. It's useless. No matter how good the medicine is, it won't be able to cure my illness. Also, don't you hate me? If I die, then you can monopolize older sister Moen. Kubu Zhuer smiled faintly. Her 2 dimples were indescribably beautiful. Who says I hate you? Chu Maxin's voice was a little hoarse as tears welled up in his eyes. Don't all look so sad. Don't worry, even if Zhuer dies in the guest house, Imperial Father won't make things difficult for you guys. It's just that Zhuer can't do anything about the 3,000 iron mines. When Yao Moen heard Kubu Zhuer's words, her heart ached even more. When she lowered her eyes, tears began to fall. Who cares about the iron mines? Don't worry, this prince will save you. Chu Maxin wiped the corners of his eyes and walked forward to carry Kubu Zhuer. Don't move. When Yao Moen saw this, she abruptly stood up and blocked Chu Maxin's way. This prince is going to carry her to the Imperial Hospital. How can she just lie here? said Chu Machine anxiously. Don't move. If you carry me, Zhe will definitely lose her arms. Older sister Moen already knew. Kubu Zhe looked towards Yao Moen in surprise. Knew what? Older sister Moen, what exactly is going on? A hint of bitterness flashed through Yao Moen's eyes when she saw Chu Machine's anxious gaze. As a result, she repeated Yin Shue's words to everyone present. At this moment, she only hoped that someone would know where the 5 treasures were. Even if there was only a sliver of hope, she did not want to give up. How could there be such a strange illness in this world? The pearl of the Eastern Sea, the coral of the Western Sea, the dragon of the Southern Sea, the mermaid of the Northern Sea, and the blood of resurrection, what exactly are they? Who has them? Asked Chu Machine anxiously when he saw that the girl's face was becoming increasingly pale. The pearl of emerald blood and the blood coral are in Lulan, but this old man hasn't been able to find the other 3 even after 12 years. An elderly voice suddenly came from outside the door. Everyone moved to the sides when they heard it. They saw Kubu Dan stagger into the room with the help of his attendants until he reached Kubu Zhe's bed. Imperial Father, your daughter has troubled you all these years. I'm sorry. At this moment, Kubu Dan seemed to have aged 10 years and was no longer as dazzling as before. Oh God! Kubu Dan, please take my life. Leave your daughter behind. Zhe is still young. Zhe, our Zhe. Tears streamed down Kubu Dan's face as he stroked Kubu Zhe's bloodshot arm with trembling hands. Imperial Father, don't be like this. Zhe is already very satisfied. Being able to be your daughter for 13 years is already a blessing from God. Zhe doesn't want to be too greedy. Imperial Father, when Zhe reaches the heavens, I'll definitely pray for Imperial Father every day. Kubu Zhe looked towards her father with a smile as tears streamed down her face. She also wanted to stroke her father's white beard, but what could she do? Her hands couldn't move. No. Daughter, Imperial Father doesn't want you to die. I don't want to. At this moment, Kubu Dan no longer had the dignity of an emperor. All he had was the sorrow and despair of a father who was about to lose his daughter. Right at this moment, Huangfu Juanxiu hurriedly walked in. Reporting to King Lulan, our emperor has ordered this humble subject to present these 2 items. When everyone heard this, they all looked towards Huangfu Juanxiu. They saw that he was holding a jade tray with 2 strange items on it. What did Big Brother send over? Asked Chu Machine suspiciously as he walked over to Huangfu Juanxiu with a frown. Resurrection blood. Hurry and invite him in. Hurry and invite him in. Sure, don't be afraid, Imperial Father won't let you die, he won't. King Lulan wiped away the tears in his eyes as he looked at Kubu Zhe, who was no longer able to speak. His heart ached to the extreme. Not long after the guard left, Ben Lei walked in wearing strange clothing with a black veil covering his face. Mystery Envoy Xiao Tian kowtows in salute to King Lulan. Ben Lei held the golden box in his hands and bowed respectfully. Hurry and get up. Your Mystery Nation's envoy. Where's the resurrection blood? King Lulan no longer cared about etiquette and hurriedly helped Ben Lei up. Reporting to King Lulan, in Xiao Tian's hands is the rarely seen resurrection blood. As Ben Lei spoke, he opened the golden box to reveal a white porcelain goblet that was flowing with dark red blood. Is this really resurrection blood? King Lulan carefully picked up the white porcelain goblet and looked towards Ben Lei suspiciously. It's absolutely true. Ben Lei nodded firmly. At the side, Yi Junqing looked at the bowl of blood with a troubled expression. He felt an indescribable pain in his heart. At this moment, the imperial physician of the Lulan kingdom had already brought in the medicinal soup. When the imperial physician opened the porcelain lid, the entire room was instantly filled with a refreshing fragrance. When one inhaled it, one would feel refreshed and refreshed. Your Majesty, the medicine is ready. However, the medicinal catalyst, said the imperial physician respectfully as he lifted the bowl of resurrection blood in front of King Lulan. King Lulan stared speechlessly at the bowl of resurrection blood for a long time before finally pouring all of it into the medicinal soup. The moment the blood mixed with the medicinal liquid, the fragrance suddenly disappeared. Everyone felt uneasy. Your Majesty, could this blood be fake? Otherwise, why would the fragrance disappear? This medicine can't be given to the princess. Dage choked up as he looked towards King Lulan worriedly. This is Shur's last chance. We won't give it up. Go away. Kubu Dan personally fed the medicinal soup to Kubu Zhur's mouth as tears fell silently. Currently, Kubu Zhur's face was completely bloodshot. No one would be able to connect her to that fairy-like beauty. As the medicine ran out, everyone was praying that the heavens would be merciful and not take away such a fresh life. Don't let down a father's love. Time passed second by second. The room was silent and everyone's gazes were focused on Kubu Zhur. When they saw that the blood on her face was gradually disappearing, the entire room erupted in cheers. Imperial Father. The word Imperial Father was enough to make everyone cry. When she returned to her room, Yao Moen sighed lightly. She was just about to drink a cup of tea when Yi Junqing charged in aggressively. Yao Moen, you're crazy. There's so much blood, you don't want to live anymore. Yao Moen glanced at Tingyu. Tingyu naturally understood and walked out to close the door. You guessed it. Yao Moen sipped her tea indifferently as she looked towards Yi Junqing with raised brows. Is it that hard to guess? Your wrist is injured and the blood came from Ben Lei. It's obvious. As Yi Junqing spoke, he slammed a bottle of top-notch medicine onto the table. One bowl of blood for 3,000 iron mines, it's worth it. Yao Moen put down the teacup and casually picked up the medicine Yi Junqing brought. She remembered that Yi Junqing had once told her that this medicine was personally concocted by him. Not just anyone had the right to use it. You've really gone crazy thinking about money. Also, how do you know that your blood will definitely be effective? When Yi Junqing saw that Yao Moen was struggling to remove the white gauze, he decided to just squat down next to her and help. Then he applied the medicine to Yao Moen's wound. It's precisely because I don't know that Moen gambled. As long as we can save Zhao Yang Princess, Mystic Country's contributions will naturally be undeniable. At that time, even if we have to give half of the 3,000 iron mines to Chu Mabe, there's still 1,500 that can go to Mang Yuan. 1,500. Yao Moen's lips curled into a smile, unable to disguise the joy in her heart. I really don't understand why you love money so much. Is money more important than your life? You're not allowed to do that next time. Yi Junqing glanced at Yao Moen speechlessly. Chapter 233. If a bowl of blood could be exchanged for 1,500 iron mines, then Moen would really hope to encounter more good things like this. Ah. Be gentler. Yao Moen felt a slight pain in her wrist and lowered her eyes to glare at Yi Junqing. With 1,500 iron mines supporting you, do you still know pain? Yi Junqing harumphed coldly. Just as he was about to get up, Tingyu suddenly walked in. Your Highness, this bowl of blood-replenishing soup was sent over by King Qi. Tingyu carefully placed the bowl in front of Yao Moen. When Yao Moen saw Yi Junqing's cold expression, she deliberately picked up the bowl. King Qi is too considerate. This prince will find a chance to thank you someday. You can leave. Yao Moen dismissed Tingyu and took a small sip of the thick soup. This prince has also given you medicine, but you haven't thanked this prince yet, complained Yi Junqing as he sat back down in a huff. How is Prince the same as King Qi? At the end of the day, King Qi is still an outsider. Yao Moen seemed to have no intention of replying. His heart instantly felt refreshed. Yi Junqing's brows relaxed as he nodded firmly. That's right. He's an outsider, it's good that you know that. When Yao Moen saw Yi Junqing smile, she felt a trace of warmth in her heart. 2 days later, Kubu Zhe was finally able to get out of bed and walk around. She was as beautiful as before, but even more beautiful than before. In order to express his gratitude to Great Shu and Mystery Country, King Lulan decided to split the 3,000 iron mines into 2 portions and gift them to Great Shu and Mystery Country. Afterwards, due to her relationship with Kubu Zhe, Yao Moen also received an official letter of eternal friendship between Lulan and Great Shu. That night, Yao Moen accompanied Kubu Zhe in the hallway as they counted the stars. The wind blew and the leaves rustled, adding a hint of serenity to the atmosphere. If it weren't for older sister, Zhe would already be a star in the sky. Kubu Zhe's eyes were clear and bright like shooting stars. Princess should be thanking the Crown Prince of Shu and that envoy from Mystery Country. Moen believes that she didn't do anything, replied Yao Moen indifferently. But Zhe remembers how resolute older sister was when you told Zhe that no matter what method you had to use, you would let Zhe live. Zhe believes that if it wasn't for older sister's words, Zhe might not have had the chance to sit here and look at the stars with older sister. Kubu Zhe turned to look at Yao Moen, her bright eyes shining with a brilliant light. Perhaps. Yao Moen didn't argue any further. She just looked at the stars, her heart filled with complicated feelings. Imperial Father said that Big Sister looks very much like someone. Just this resemblance is enough for Imperial Father to grant Big Sister a wish. If Big Sister has a request in the future, you can come to Lulan to find Imperial Father. He will definitely help you. Kubu Zhe's childish tone was exceptionally firm. Like who? Yao Moen's heart trembled as she asked suspiciously. Back then, Imperial Father was running around everywhere in search of blood celery. When he reached Mongyuan, he suddenly encountered bandits. Although Imperial Father had many experts by his side, they were all ambushed and captured. Fortunately, a caravan passed by and rescued Imperial Father. Then they even sent someone to escort Imperial Father to a safe place. Although Imperial Father doesn't know that person's name, he remembers her caravan, Yo Manifest Trade. Kubu Zhe narrated the truth with gratitude in her eyes. Ha! Then didn't Moen take advantage of that caravan? Yao Moen laughed lightly. This Yao Manifest Trade was her caravan in Mongyuan. She never expected that she would have such a chance encounter with King Lulan. There are very few women who can say such crude things after seeing him. Yi Junqing lifted his brows as he looked towards Yao Moen, feeling inexplicably pleased. Half of the duck that was already in your hands was snatched away by someone else. If it was Prince, you'd probably curse even more fiercely than Moen. Yao Moen shrugged angrily. This prince believes that Chu Maobei must be thinking the same thing right now, guessed Yi Junqing. Achoo, achoo. The moment Yi Junqing closed his mouth, Yao Moen started sneezing again and again without end. The fine agarwood emitted a faint fragrance. Inside the carriage, Chu Maoxin was sitting next to Chu Maobei like a frosted eggplant. He seemed to be deep in thought. Yao Moen isn't a good person. Try not to interact with her too much in the future. Chu Maobei's clear voice flowed out of his mouth like rain pattering on celadon. His long and narrow phoenix eyes shone with a biting cold light. She's very good. If Big Brother gets to know her better, you'll realize that she's just as smart as older sister Maoxin. Chu Moxin rarely refuted Chu Mabei's words, but he wanted to clarify this matter with Yao Moen. The Yao Moen that you think is very good just now called your imperial brother a scoundrel. Also, she's not smart, she's just good at scheming, corrected Chu Mabei sternly. Chapter 234. In any case. Moxin believes that she's a good person, muttered Chu Moxin quietly. He didn't doubt his older brother's words. His older brother had always done a lot of lip reading, but this didn't affect Chu Moxin's trust in Yao Moen. Chu Mabei's long and narrow eyes flickered with an enigmatic light. Yao Moen was able to grasp his younger brother's weakness in such a short amount of time. On the way, Yao Moen repeated the same trick. She secretly had Yan Nanqing's people block Azure Dragon's path while she and Yi Junqing went sightseeing back to Great Chu Imperial City. Her relaxed heartstrings tightened the moment they entered the city. She could allow herself to temporarily relax, but she wouldn't allow herself to indulge in the slightest. Thus, when they returned to the Imperial City, Yao Moen's heart also calmed down. According to Lu Xing's report, a lot of new things had happened while she was gone. Other than Yi Hongyi favoring Yao Sulwan once more, the palace maids' corpses would occasionally appear in the palace. The only thing that made Yao Moen happy was that Mingyu had been transferred to the pill refining room to work. Your Highness, 2 days ago, His Majesty had decreed that Yao Sulwan would be conferred the title of noble consortly. Yao Sulwan has become more and more domineering in the palace, reported Lu Xing. How arrogant can a paper tiger be? What do you mean by female corpses appearing in the palace from time to time? Yao Moen wasn't surprised that Yao Sulwan had been favored once more. This servant has also secretly investigated this matter. I found that these palace maids either bled from all orifices or their faces were covered in bruises. It was extremely terrifying. This servant originally suspected that it was in Bingshan, but this is different from in Bingshan's previous methods. Also, and Bingshan has been staying in the pill refining room and rarely comes out, so... This servant makes a bold guess that these palace maids most likely ended up like this because they were testing medicine, replied Lu Xing solemnly. Yi Hongyi wants to live forever, yet he wants so many innocent people to die early. The sins he has committed, even dying 1,000 times wouldn't be enough to pay for them. Yao Imo Wan's gaze gradually turned cold. Her jade fingers tightly gripped the armrest as she coldly rebuked. Right at this time, Tingyup jogged in from outside. Reporting to your ladyship, there is news from the prison that the Prime Minister has contracted a serious illness and is clamoring to find a doctor. The jailers did not dare to make the decision on their own and just reported it to His Majesty. His Majesty seemed to have sent Imperial Physician Li to the prison. Tingyu reported everything she had heard. If one's heart is black, how can one be cured? This consort is a bit tired. You two can withdraw. Yao Imo Wan dismissed Lu Xing and Tingyu somewhat tiredly, then got up and walked into the bedroom. Around midnight, the night was dark and windy, and dark clouds covered the moon. 2 figures swished through the sky and vanished in an instant. Hey, did you see anything just now? The first jailer gulped and looked at the roof timidly. Yes. Jailer B said in all seriousness. Then what are you waiting for? Hurry up and strike the gong. When Jailer A was about to raise his hammer, he was stopped by Jailer B with a grunt. What could there be? Aren't they just some wandering ghosts? Our heavenly prison doesn't have much, but there are plenty of wronged ghosts. Don't make a fuss about nothing. Jailer A couldn't help but wipe away his cold sweat when he heard Jailer B say this. Yao Imo Wan felt an indescribable feeling as she looked at the disheveled Prime Minister Yao who was lying on the floor drinking medicine. Does father feel any regret for ending up like this? Yao Imo Wan looked indifferently at Yao Zhenting who was in the prison. There was no emotion in her voice. Perhaps it was because of Kubu Zhu's influence, but Yao Imo-wan's heart wavered slightly. Emily. Emily, you slut. You actually dare to appear in front of this old man. This old man will beat you to death. Beat you to death. The moment he heard the voice, Yao Zhenting abruptly raised his head and glared at Yao Moen. At this moment, Yao Moen clearly saw that Yao Zhenting's face was covered in 7 or 8 fist-sized pustules, as well as his arms and legs. How did Emily betray Lord? Does Lord want to kill Emily this much? Yao Imo-wan's heart suddenly turned cold and her clear eyes were covered in frost. Medicine. This old man wants to take medicine. Damned Emily. If it wasn't for those 2 bastards you gave birth to, this old man wouldn't have ended up in this state. This old man will kill you and those 2 bastards of yours. This old man can't die. I can't die. Yao Zhenting crawled over like a dog and used his tongue to lick the medicine on the floor as he muttered. Master, he's probably been bitten by a rat and he's already delirious. Beside her, Yin Shui said in a low voice. Do Xianglan. Why are you here? Looking for Lu Yusin. Ha ha ha. You're late. That pretty boy has already been killed by this old man. He died a horrible death. Don't even think about finding him again. Yao Zhenting looked towards Yao Imo-wan with a sinister expression and a strange smile. This is medicine. Eat it and all of your wishes will come true. Yao Imo-wan took out a green porcelain bottle from her sleeve and expressionlessly threw it into the prison. Medicine. This old man's medicine. This old man wants to live, this old man wants to be the prime minister, this old man wants to have a son. Yao Zhenting picked up the medicine that Yao Imo-wan had thrown in like it was a treasure. He abruptly opened the bottle and swallowed it in one go. Master. Yin Shui looked towards Yao Imo-wan worriedly. This consort still wasn't ruthless enough. Let's go. Yao Imo-wan looked at the crazed Yao Zhenting with dim eyes. In this life, she had never hoped to have a father like Kubu Dan, but she had never expected to have a father like Yao Zhenting either. The news of Yao Zhenting's sudden death came from the heavenly prison in the early morning of the next day. The prime minister of a dynasty had actually died so miserably. He hadn't even been buried in a coffin before being thrown into a mass grave by the prison guards with grass. In the imperial garden, Yao Imo-wan was sitting at the edge of the pavilion with Fluffy in her arms. She was leaning against the railing, feeling indescribably depressed. Tingyut said you didn't eat breakfast, so this is for you. Yao Imo-wan revealed a faint smile as she looked at the pastry in front of her. When did Prince learn to care about Imo-wan? Yao Imo-wan took the pastry and lifted her brows as she looked towards Yi Junqing. This prince has always cared about you, but... Before Yi Junqing could finish, Fluffy suddenly jumped up in fright. Yao Imo-wan hadn't been paying attention for a moment and Fluffy had scratched the back of her hand, leaving behind a bloody mark. TSK, how could younger sister be so careless? You're making the esteemed prince's heart ache. At this time, a radiant Yao Sulwan was walking over with a fierce dog. Moen, are you alright? When Yi Junqing saw the scratch on the back of Yao Imo-wan's hand, he frowned and glared at Yao Sulwan. You did it on purpose. Yi Junqing rebuked harshly. That's right, this consort did it on purpose. However, this consort was also doing it for your own good. It's broad daylight, yet you two don't know how to be discreet and actually brazenly have a rendezvous in the imperial garden. This consort has seen it, but if His Majesty sees it, there won't be any way for you to live. Yao Sulwan swayed as she walked forward, but the dog next to her had already charged towards Yao Imo-wan. Woo! Yao Sulwan was furious when she saw the dog that Yi Junqing had kicked away struggle for a bit before raising its tail. Yi Junqing, how dare you! You actually dared to kill this consort's beloved dog. Yao Sulwan rebuked angrily. This prince not only dared to kill that animal, this prince also dared to kill you. Every time Yi Junqing thought of Yao Moshin's death, he really wanted to snap Yao Sulwan's neck. Chapter 235. Prince, don't worry. Good and evil will be repaid in the end. It's just a matter of time. Prince, Moan and second older sister still have things to talk about, so please return first. Yao Moan looked meaningfully at Yi Junqing. Although Yi Junqing was angry, he knew that Yao Moan wouldn't let Yao Sulwan off so easily, so he turned to leave. Only after Yi Junqing had walked far away did Yao Sulwan dare to move. Just now, Yi Junqing's murderous eyes had given her quite a fright. Since second older sister knows to be afraid, then you should obediently stay in Pure Flower's palace. The esteemed prince isn't as good-tempered as Moan, said Yao Moan gently as she used a handkerchief to wipe the scratches on the back of her hand. Humph. Yao Moan, you never expected this, right? Not only did Ben Gong not die, Ben Gong was actually promoted to noble consort. How about it? Are you very disappointed? Yao Sulwan walked towards Yao Moan as if she was courting death. Rather than shackling you in Pure Flower's palace until both sides suffer, it's better to temporarily take you in as a confidant. Moan had expected that Yi Hongyi would think of this method. However, second older sister wouldn't be so stupid as to think that Yi Hongyi truly dotes on you, right? Yao Moan looked at Yao Sulwan with ridicule. Why wouldn't he be sincere? His Majesty and Ben Gong are already grasshoppers on the same boat. His Majesty doesn't have any other choice. Yao Sulwan looked towards Yao Moan disapprovingly. Who knew how much effort she had put into making Yi Hongyi understand this? Second older sister is truly silly and adorable. If His Majesty was truly sincere towards second older sister, then why did His Majesty make Moan Empress? Yao Moan walked in front of Yao Sulwan with great interest and carefully examined her face. Her lips curved in a playful smile. She really was a cockroach that wouldn't die. However, it didn't matter. Thankfully, she didn't hate this kind of cat and mouse game. His Majesty made you Empress. That's impossible. Yao Sulwan's eyes widened and her voice changed slightly from excitement. If second older sister doesn't believe me, you can go ask His Majesty. Oh, I almost forgot. Father died in prison. I heard he died very miserably, said Yao Moan. Humph, that old thing should have died long ago. Regarding this matter, you should be grateful to Ben Gong. If it weren't for that infected rat, he wouldn't have died so quickly. When mentioning Enchanting, Yao Sulwan's eyes flashed with disgust. Yao Moan was speechless. She suddenly felt a bit bad for Enchanting. No matter how unimportant Yao Sulwan was, she was still a legitimate daughter. Enchanting hadn't treated her unfairly in this lifetime. Yao Moan couldn't help but shake her head when she saw Yao Sulwan angrily leaving her line of sight. How come Yao Sulwan doesn't understand the phrase, a wise man submits to circumstances? Inside the imperial study, after Yi Hongyi finished writing the imperial edict conferring Yao Moan the title of Empress, he was just about to stamp the jade seal when he saw An Bingshan push open the door and walk in. Reporting to Your Majesty, Imperial Consort Li is outside and asks for an audience. An Bingshan waved his horsetail whisk and reported respectfully. Let her in. Even if he really wanted to eat this woman's flesh and skin, some of Yao Sulwan's words weren't without reason. Rather than guarding against her as if she was a thief, it was better to put off their conflict for the time being. At least he would have one less enemy. In reality, they both wanted the same result. It was just that their goals were different. Yao Sulwan wanted to preserve her life, while he wanted to preserve the stability of the throne. However, this didn't mean that Yi Hongyi had forgotten how Yao Sulwan had forced him back then. This subject consort Sulwan kowtows in salute to your majesty. Yao Sulwan opened her mouth and bowed. Rise, why have you come here? Didn't Jin say that if there wasn't anything important, it was best not to enter the imperial study? Yi Hongyi restrained the coldness in his eyes as he spoke indifferently. This subject consort naturally has an important matter, that's why I've come to see your majesty. After Yao Sulwan got up, she walked over to the dragon desk and lowered her eyes to look at the imperial edict. Your majesty, you're really going to confer Yao Moan the title of empress? Yao Sulwan gulped and looked towards Yi Hongyi in shock. Why not? Yi Hongyi asked disapprovingly. Conferring the title of empress wasn't something he did on impulse. Your majesty likes Moan, this subject consort knows, but in the end, Moan is an idiot. If your majesty makes an idiot empress, it will definitely become the laughing stock of our Great Chu. Even the people of Great Chu will feel ashamed. Yao Sulwan tried her best to persuade him. The idiot you're talking about obtained the document of eternal friendship with Lulan. You might not necessarily have this ability. Jin has already decided on this matter, there's no need for you to say anything more. Yi Hongyi glanced at Yao Sulwan, then casually picked up the jade seal. Eternal friendship. Your majesty. This proves that Yao Moan isn't an idiot. Otherwise, how could she have that kind of scheming? Emperor. Enough. Yao Sulwan, Jin has agreed to return your freedom and confer you the title of Guifei, but that doesn't mean you have the right to interfere with Jin's decision. Jin must make Wana the empress. You can withdraw. Yi Hongyi looked towards Yao Sulwan coldly. But, withdraw. Yi Hongyi roared in a low voice, the darkness in his eyes causing Yao Sulwan to once again fall into danger. Yao Sulwan was speechless. She knew very well that it was difficult to offend a dragon's might. She turned around, but just as she reached the palace gates, she saw that Yi Hongyi had stamped the jade seal on the imperial edict. Her heart felt like it was being squeezed by someone. Blood flowed out drop by drop. For this empress position, she didn't hesitate to frame Yao Moshin, causing Yao Moshin to be condemned by everyone. She didn't expect that after Yao Moshin died, another Yao Moan would come. It was as if these two sisters were born to oppose her. The next day, when Yao Moan received the imperial edict, her heart was filled with complicated feelings. This old servant congratulates your imperial highness. His Majesty has spoken. The blueprints for the palace for your imperial highness have already been designed and construction will begin in the next few days. For this period of time, your imperial highness, please stay in Guan Osprey Palace. Once the new palace is finished, your imperial highness can move into the eastern palace. Said in Bingshan respectfully. But Ben Gong doesn't want to move. I've lived here for too long and I can't bear to leave. How about you tell his imperial highness not to build any new palace? Warner doesn't want it. Yao Moan blinked as she looked at An Bingshan, her childish voice filled with pleading. This old servant can't make the decision. If your imperial highness doesn't have anything else, this old servant will take his leave first. And Bingshan looked at Yao Moan's naive appearance and snorted disdainfully. It wasn't a bad thing to have such a fool as empress. At the very least, she wouldn't care about anything she shouldn't care about. Once An Bingshan left, Yao Moan threw the imperial edict to Tingyu in disgust and summoned Yin Shui. This consort wants to see Mingyu tonight. Go arrange it, ordered Yao Moan coldly. That night, when Mingyu appeared in Guan Osprey Palace, Yao Moan was extremely shocked. How did you get so skinny? Asked Yao Moan with a frown when she saw Mingyu's dark expression and sunken eyes. This servant thought that I would never have the chance to see your imperial highness again in this lifetime. Now that we've met, Mingyu would like to boldly request something from your imperial highness. As Mingyu spoke, she placed her hands on the ground and begged while sobbing. What exactly happened? Yin Shui, help her up so we can talk. Yao Moen looked towards Mingyu with heartache. If your Imperial Highness doesn't agree, this servant won't get up even if I die. When Yao Moen saw how stubborn Mingyu was, she didn't force it and indicated for Yin Shui to return to her side. Speak. Yao Moen nodded slightly. Mingyu knows that she doesn't have much time left to live, but Mingyu is unwilling. Why is he and Bingshan able to get away scot-free despite harming countless people? Poor Hongmei and those sisters died so miserably. This servant only asks that your Imperial Highness allow this servant to see in Bingshan's retribution while I'm still alive. I beg your Imperial Highness. Mingyu begged while sobbing and banged her head on the ground. Chapter 236. This consort owes you for this. Don't worry, this consort will definitely let you see how miserable and Bingshan's fate is while you're still alive. Tell me what happened during this time. Why did you become so weak? Asked Yao Moen as she looked at Mingyu worriedly. Replying, Your Highness, while Your Highness and the esteemed prince were on a diplomatic mission to Lulan, Consort Li somehow managed to persuade His Majesty and actually regained his favor. The first thing Consort Li did after regaining favor was find this servant to settle the score. This servant had no choice but to beg in Bingshan to transfer this servant to a new position. Perhaps it was fate, but although this servant managed to escape Consort Li's revenge, something big happened in the refinement room. And Bingshan's pills this time went wrong, and those palace maids who were testing the pills died one after another. Even us palace maids in charge of refining the pills were infected with the cold poison. In order to prevent this from reaching His Majesty's ears, not only did Bingshan secretly transport those palace maids out of the imperial palace to be buried, even we were forbidden from leaving the refinement room without his permission. Mingyu knew that she didn't have long to live and wanted to fight in Bingshan, but Bingshan was afraid that the cold poison would enter his body, so he didn't take a single step into the refinement room. This servant didn't have a chance to do anything. Mingyu sobbed as she told the truth. And Bingshan actually dared to treat people's lives like grass. Mingyu, don't worry. Within 10 days, this consort will take revenge for Hongmei and those innocent palace maids. I'll make Bingshan beg for death. As for you, don't go back. Yin Shui, send her away from the imperial palace for treatment, ordered Yao Moen in a low voice that was as cold as ice. Mingyu thanks Your Highness for your good intentions, but Mingyu can't leave the refinement room. And Bingshan sends people to do a headcount every day. If he finds out that this servant is missing, he'll definitely alert the enemy and it won't be beneficial for Your Highness. Mingyu looked towards Yao Moen gratefully but refused her good intentions. But if you go back, you'll definitely die, said Yao Moen with heartache when she saw how thin Mingyu was. In the end, this servant still owes Hongmei a life. This servant's death isn't worth regretting. As long as I can personally see Bingshan executed, this servant can die in peace. Mingyu's gaze was resolute. Yao Moen knew that she wouldn't be able to convince Mingyu, so she could only order Yin Shui to send Mingyu back. That night, Yao Moen didn't sleep at all. The next day, when Yao Moen dragged her tired body out of the inner room, she saw Tingyu rushing in. Your Highness, it's bad. The esteemed prince is shouting that he wants to report Bingshan to His Majesty. Yin Shui is trying to stop him, but I'm afraid she won't be able to stop him for long. When Tingyu said this, Yao Moen instantly became spirited and rushed out of Guan Osprey Palace to the East Wing. Stop! You guys! Just as Yao Moen opened the door, she saw a lump of black stuff throw itself at her. Before Yao Moen could react, she felt a dull pain in her forehead, then she fell into darkness and lost consciousness. When Yi Junqing and Yin Shui saw Yao Moan lying on the ground with her face covered in ink, they immediately stopped fighting and walked over timidly. Yin Shui, you were the one who threw this inkstone, right? Asked Yi Junqing slowly. Yin Shui didn't reply and lowered her eyes to look at Yi Junqing's ink-stained palm. Ah. Yi Junqing subconsciously pulled his hand back into his wide sleeves and his expression turned red. In front of the bronze mirror, Yao Moan had her legs crossed on the dressing table. Her jade hands were clenching the white gauze wrapped in ice as she gently pressed it against her forehead. Left side, use more strength. Did Prince not eat? You're not even as strong as a woman. Yao Moan shook her head in disgust when she saw Yi Junqing's extremely unwilling expression. Right side, be gentler. It looks like Prince won't even need to eat tomorrow night, said Yao Moan angrily. That's enough. Yi Junqing swallowed his anger for a long time before his hair finally stood up in anger. Who is Prince acting like this for? Could it be me, the one who was knocked unconscious and laid on the bed for 4 hours before waking up? Yao Moan gripped the white gauze in her hand as she looked towards Yi Junqing resentfully. This prince has already admitted his wrongs. You can't just keep holding on to this matter and not let it go, right? Besides, this prince didn't do it on purpose. When Yi Junqing saw Yao Moan's aggrieved expression, he finally became listless. Does Prince think there's any use in saying it wasn't on purpose after killing someone? Asked Yao Moan. The problem is that you're not dead yet. Yi Junqing was extremely speechless. Does Prince really want Moan to die? Asked Yao Moan with wide eyes. Yi Junqing suddenly felt like keeping his mouth shut was the wisest choice. After 4 hours, Yi Junqing finally understood something. Massaging someone's back really wasn't something a person could do, especially when massaging Yao Moan's back. Without strong endurance, one would definitely die from anger midway. Only when it was 10 o'clock in the evening did Yao Moan mercifully call for a stop. Does Prince really want Bingshan to die? Asked Yao Moan indifferently as she picked up some food. This prince personally saw him transport the corpses of the 5 palace maids out of the imperial palace. This eunuch is becoming more and more outrageous. Could it be that his life is a life and other people's lives are nothing more than grass? Rebuked Yi Junqing angrily. Actually, if Prince wants to get rid of this eunuch, you can ask Moan for help. He's His Majesty's favorite. Does Prince think that His Majesty will deal with him impartially? Reminded Yao Moan with good intentions. You're willing to deal with Bingshan? Yi Junqing turned to look towards Yao Moan. Prince deliberately told Tingyu that he was going to report Bingshan in front of His Majesty and then made such a big fuss. It's not that hard to guess why. Yao Moan smiled faintly as she looked towards Yi Junqing. No one likes women that are too smart. Muttered Yi Junqing as he blushed when he saw that Yao Moan had guessed his intentions. He admitted that everything he did was to attract Yao Moan's attention because Yi Junqing believed that as long as Yao Moan made a move, Bingshan wouldn't be able to live. His heart suddenly ached. That's right, women that are too smart will only attract jealousy. This prince didn't mean that. Explained Yi Junqing when he saw that Yao Moan was silent. Prince isn't wrong. Women that are too smart are indeed annoying. Thankfully, Moan doesn't expect anyone to like her, replied Yao Moan coldly. This prince, if Moan remembers correctly, Prince seems to recognize Clear Wind Monastery's Taoist priest Zhu Qin. Yao Moan didn't give Yi Junqing a chance to explain and immediately changed the topic. Zhu Qin, that swindler, why are you mentioning him? Yi Junqing did recognize him, and he would recognize him even if he was reduced to ashes. If it wasn't for the fact that Zhu Qin had the late emperor's death exemption medallion, he would definitely beat Zhu Qin until he was looking for his teeth all over the floor. Evil people have their own evil people. Zhu Qin is indispensable to deal with Bingshan. Moen wants to see him tomorrow night. I'll leave this matter to Prince. Moen believes that as long as Prince makes a move, that bastard will only listen obediently. Yao Moen's voice was very low, but it was filled with determination. Yi Junqing had no reason to refuse. Even after Yao Moen got up to leave, Yi Junqing didn't dare to say another word. However, Ting Yu, who was at the side, started to clear the table in an unfriendly manner. What are you doing? This prince hasn't finished eating yet. Yi Junqing lifted his brows as he looked towards Ting Yu. Ting Yu is your highness's servant. After your highness finishes eating, Ting Yu should be cleaning the table. Ting Yu doesn't care about other people. While Ting Yu was talking, she had already poured all the food on the table into the hogwash can. How could this prince be someone else? Yi Junqing had always thought that after living in Guan Osprey Palace for so long, he had become an indispensable part of it. This servant doesn't know if Wang Yi is someone else, but this servant knows that anyone would like a master who is intelligent and considerate like Nyang Nyang. Ting Yu's words sounded like she was feeling indignant for Yao Mo Wan. Chapter 237. That's right. This prince also likes it, said Yi Junqing loudly. But Prince just... Ting Yu looked towards Yi Junqing in shock. This prince said the wrong thing just now. Can't I correct it now? Yi Junqing looked towards the inner room as he spoke. After interacting with her for a while, Yi Junqing had already figured out Yao Moen's temper. He could only go along with her stubbornness. Ting Yu, prepare a new table for the esteemed prince's dinner. Just as Yi Junqing was about to speak, a cold voice came from the inner room. The next day, when Yi Junqing brought Zhu Chen to see her, Yao Moen felt a bit of regret. Zhu Chen, who had been beaten black-eyed, didn't seem like an immortal cultivator at all. Even so, Yao Moen still kept Zhu Chen in Guan Osprey Palace for an entire night. Inside the imperial study, Yi Hongyi looked towards Qing Long in front of the table. There's still no news. Reporting to your majesty, this subordinate has secretly sent people to investigate everything related to Mystery Country, but none of the people who reported back found anything, reported Qing Long. Send more people. We must uncover this mysterious country's veil. We want to see, other than Qi and Shu, who else dares to hoard iron ore. Cough cough. Yi Hongyi suddenly started coughing violently in his fury. Your Majesty, should we summon an imperial doctor? Asked Qing Long worriedly. No need, you can leave. Yi Hongyi waved his hand to dismiss Qing Long. At this time, An Bingshan ran in from the door. Reporting to your Majesty, Daoist Zhu Chen is waiting outside. He says he has something to report to your Majesty. And Bingshan bowed respectfully as he spoke in a sharp voice filled with schadenfreude. Zhu Chen. Which Zhu Chen? Yi Hongyi slumped against the dragon throne, his voice weak. Your Majesty, have you forgotten? It's that Daoist priest that the late emperor thought highly of. He even secretly helped the second prince before. Reminded An Bingshan. It's him. He actually dares to leave Clear Wind Monastery. Isn't he afraid that we'll chop off his head? Let him in. Yi Hongyi's eyes lit up with anger. And Bingshan had expected his master to have this kind of reaction and immediately impatiently walked out of the imperial study. At the bottom of the steps, a Taoist priest dressed in a plain robe stood upright. A few strands of silver-white hair fell across his forehead. As the autumn wind blew, the Taoist priest's robe billowed with waves, giving off a sense of calmness and vicissitudes that made people admire him. He had a handsome face and bright eyes, giving off the feeling that he had arrived with the wind. Zhu Chen, seeing as we're from the same sect, I'll give you a word of advice. Back then, when the 5 dragons struggled for the throne, you bet on the wrong person and offended quite a few people. One of them is the sovereign of 9-5. I advise you to leave right now, and perhaps you'll be able to preserve your life. And Bing Shan walked in front of Ju Qin while waving his horsetail whisk, his narrowed eyes filled with ridicule and ridicule. Before I sent the message, if senior brother had said those words from the bottom of your heart, Ju Qin would definitely be moved to tears, but now. Ju Qin looked coldly at An Bing Shan, the corners of his lips curling into an icy smile. Fine, since you want to court death, senior brother won't be able to stop you. Please, His Majesty is waiting for you. And Bing Shan flicked his horsetail whisk, then bent down and extended a hand out of habit. Senior brother has truly been a eunuch for too long that you've forgotten how to walk normally, right? Then Ju Qin will teach you. Watch carefully. Ju Qin raised his horsetail whisk, straightened his back, and strode towards the imperial study. Ju Qin, don't be too pleased with yourself. Since you dared to leave Clear Wind Monastery, then I have the ability to make sure that you won't be able to return. As he watched Ju Qin walk into the imperial study, and Bing Shan also tried to straighten his back, but when he wanted to walk, he forgot which leg to use first. Inside the imperial study, Yi Hongyi was sitting upright and still, staring at the person in front of him. This humble Daoist Ju Qin kowtows in salute to His Majesty. May His Majesty live for 10,000 years. Ju Qin respectfully stood in front of the dragon table and bowed with his hands clasped in front of him, his expression as calm as still water. His Majesty. If we remember correctly, immortal Daoist Ju Qin once said that we didn't have the fate to sit on this throne in this lifetime. Yi Hongyi looked at Ju Qin coldly, the anger in his heart unable to quell. Back then, this humble Daoist miscalculated the heavenly workings, which was why I helped the evildoer and nearly caused His Majesty to cast pearls before swine. This is truly this humble Daoist sin, so on the day Your Majesty ascended the throne, this humble Daoist punished himself by facing the wall of Clear Wind Monastery and only left the monastery a few days ago. Ju Qin's expression was calm, but underneath his strong exterior was a heart that was trembling like a sieve. Is that so? Daoist priest couldn't possibly think that just by saying that you miscalculated the heavenly workings, you would be able to make up for the grave mistake you made that day, right? Ever since Ju Qin had entered the door, Yi Hongyi had been thinking about what kind of punishment he could use to make Ju Qin die an even more miserable death. This humble Daoist knows that he has sinned and does not ask for Your Majesty's forgiveness. However, there is one thing that this humble Daoist must say. When this humble Daoist looked at the sky a few days ago, this humble Daoist saw that the stars of calamity had shifted and the purple clouds were covered in dust. Thus, this humble Daoist destroyed his own cultivation to perform a divination for Your Majesty and discovered that a great calamity has descended upon the world. If it is not resolved, then His Majesty's life will not be long, said Ju Qin in a very serious manner. How audacious! You actually dare to spread fallacies here and curse the current emperor. Your Majesty, this person's mouth is full of nonsense. This old servant will drag him out and give him a good beating right now. At the side, and Bing Shan immediately stepped forward and berated him harshly. That's exactly what we were thinking. Guards. Your Majesty, have you been feeling sleepy and tired recently? Have you been unable to carry out your tasks? Have you been coughing often and have phlegm clogged your throat? Sometimes you are drowsy, sometimes you meditate alone. Especially your right hand, has there been any black blood clogged up in your palm? Just as Yi Hongyi was about to call the guards in, Ju Qin immediately questioned him loudly. His gaze was resolute and his tone was resolute. Spreading fallacies. Your Majesty, you mustn't be deceived by him. Your Majesty, don't forget how he used flowery words in front of the late emperor to swindle away an entire bowl of your blood. The instant he heard Ju Qin's description, and Bing Shan was greatly shocked. These symptoms were all symptoms of the poisoned palace maids in the pill refining room. How did he know? Because he was afraid of losing His Majesty's trust, and Bing Shan had still delivered the pills to His Majesty despite knowing that they were poisoned. Even though those pills couldn't take His Majesty's life, they still damaged his body. And Bing Shan was afraid that this matter would reach His Majesty's ears, which was why he had secretly disposed of the corpses of the palace maids who had been testing the pills. He had forbidden the palace maids who were still alive from entering and leaving the pill refining room. Now that these symptoms had come out of Zhu Chen's mouth, and Bing Shan was naturally terrified. Whether or not I'm spreading fallacies, I believe that Your Majesty has your own judgment. Of course, if Your Majesty doesn't believe in this humble Daoist's abilities, this humble Daoist is willing to reveal his abilities in front of Your Majesty to prove my innocence. Zhu Chen straightened his Daoist robe and looked towards Yi Hongyi solemnly. Your Majesty. And Bing Shan was about to speak again, but Yi Hongyi stopped him. Alright, we really do want to see just how much Daoist priest has grown in these 5 years. We'll order you to divine the esteemed Prince Yi Juanqing's current situation. Yi Hongyi's gaze was cold as he looked towards Zhu Chen suspiciously. The reason he had chosen Yi Juanqing was because Yi Hongyi believed that it was possible for everyone in the imperial palace to collude with Zhu Chen except Yi Juanqing. This was because Yi Hongyi had schemed against Zhu Chen and offered a bowl of blood to imperial father. It was only later that Yi Hongyi found out that because of one sentence from Zhu Chen, Yi Juanqing had been forced to give up another bowl of blood after he left and had been unconscious for 3 days and 3 nights. He had almost died. Your Majesty, please wait a moment. After receiving the order, Zhu Chen raised his horsetail whisk with one hand and paced back and forth in the imperial study as he muttered some incantations. After about 5 minutes, Zhu Chen finally stopped. There was sweat on his forehead. Reporting to Your Majesty, this humble Daoist has divined that the esteemed prince is in the southwest direction of the imperial palace, said Zhu Chen as he panted. The esteemed prince has been temporarily staying in Guan Osprey Palace for a long time. Everyone in the palace knows about this, so do I still need you to calculate, said Bing Shan resentfully. Chapter 238. That's all. Yi Hongyi looked towards Zhu Chen coldly. This humble Daoist also calculated that there would be a flood at the 2:45 in the morning, replied Zhu Chen confidently. 2:45 in the morning. Wasn't it just now? Flood? What do you mean? Yi Hongyi looked towards Zhu Chen with interest as his eyes shone with a strange light. Your Majesty, please forgive me. This humble Daoist could only calculate that the esteemed prince caused a flood. This humble Daoist was unable to calculate the specifics, replied Zhu Chen humbly. Set off for Guan Yu Palace. Yi Hongyi's long and narrow eyes narrowed slightly. He got up and walked around the dragon table to slowly walk to Zhu Chen's side. If your calculations are accurate, we will let bygones be bygones and allow you to hold a position in the palace. If your calculations aren't accurate. When Zhu Chen saw Yi Hongyi's mischievous smile, his heart was already trembling uncontrollably. However, his face remained calm. After Yi Hongyi left, Bing Shan quickly walked to Zhu Chen's side. How did you know about the symptoms? Bing Shan furrowed his brows and asked through gritted teeth. Senior brother wants to know. Even though he was scared to death, when he saw Bing Shan's panicked expression, Zhu Chen still felt indescribably comfortable. Hurry and tell me, urged Bing Shan impatiently. Zhu Chen won't tell me. Senior brother, don't forget, if it wasn't for senior brother, how could the second prince and Zhu Chen have lost so badly? As he recalled the past, Zhu Chen's eyes shone with intense hatred. That was Empress Yao Maxin's idea. Zhejiang only. Bing Shan instinctively wanted to explain, but he saw that Zhu Chen's smile was eerie and cold. Only what? Adding fuel to the fire. Humph. At that time, Yao Moshin had intentionally left a way out for the second prince. It was you, eunuch, who was so ruthless that the second prince died under the arrows. This enmity, Zhu Sha will definitely take revenge for the second prince. Now, shouldn't eunuch and lead the way? If His Majesty gets anxious, you won't be able to bear the consequences. Zhu Qin glared at him angrily, his voice as cold as ice. Don't get cocky. Zajia doesn't believe that your calculations are that accurate. And Bingshan hatefully flicked his sleeves and hurriedly chased after him. Seeing in Bingshan's slightly unsteady footsteps, Zhu Qin knew that he was afraid. Forget it. If I can kill that bastard in Bingshan, it'll be worth it even if I have to sacrifice my life. Before Yi Hongyi even stepped into Guan Osprey Palace, he heard laughter coming from inside. Tingyu, quickly come and take a look at this drenched chicken. Ha! Great! You bullied Warner all the time, and now you're getting your retribution. Ha ha ha! Inside the courtyard, Yao Moan pointed at the drenched Yi Junqing and laughed. Empress, please behave yourself. Yi Junqing looked towards Yao Moan with sullen anger in his eyes. His hands were tightly gripping the corners of his clothes that had been soaked in the lake water. Humph, this consort insists on laughing. Tingyu, Lu Xing, accompany this consort in laughing at him. Such a big person actually fell into the lake. Stupid to death, ahaha. With Yao Mo Wan's command, Tingyu and Lu Xing naturally responded and laughed loudly. You've gone too far. Just watch this prince. Just as Yi Junqing was about to make a move, Yi Hongyi suddenly appeared in Guan Osprey Palace. Junqing no matter how wrong Warner is, she's still our empress, the mother of the nation. You shouldn't have made a move. Yi Hongyi slowly walked over and put his arms around Yao Moan. When his long and narrow eyes landed on Yi Junqing, he couldn't help but be shocked. Esteemed prince. How did you end up like this? The moment Bingshan saw that Yi Junqing was covered in water, he sucked in a breath of cold air. That's right, Junqing, you've always been cautious, so how did you end up in such a sorry state? Yi Hongyi also wanted to know the reason. Replying, Your Majesty. When this subject younger brother passed by Jade Lake, I saw a piece of clothing floating on the lake. At the time, I thought that someone had fallen into the water, so I didn't realize that it was the Empress prank. Yi Junqing looked towards Yao Moan angrily. Oh. Warner, what's going on? Ever since he had been conferred the title of Empress, Yi Hongyi had never come to Guan Osprey Palace. It wasn't because he didn't miss the lovely person in his arms, but because it was as Zhu Qin had said, there were some things that he didn't have the strength to do as he wished. Your Majesty. Warner just wanted to test on Your Majesty's behalf to see if the esteemed prince had sympathy. He does, explained Yao Moan seriously. Your Majesty. When Yi Junqing heard this, his blood instantly surged. Forget it, Junqing wouldn't bicker with Warner, right? That's right, Junqing, take a look and see who this person is. When Yi Hongyi turned to look towards Zhu Qin, he saw that Zhu Qin was hiding behind Bingshan. Zhu Qin, hurry up and come greet the esteemed prince. Yi Hongyi's gaze turned towards Zhu Qin as he secretly observed their reactions. Ahem. This humble Daoist Zhu Qin kowtows in greeting. Ah. Just as Zhu Qin was about to bow, he felt a cold breeze in front of him. In the next second, Zhu Qin felt as if the bridge of his nose had collapsed and blood was gushing out. Yao Dao. You actually dared to come out of Clear Wind Monastery. You're the one courting death. Yi Junqing didn't say anything else and simply swung his fist. Even though Zhu Qin's nose was bleeding, Yi Junqing was still dissatisfied. He took large strides forward and grabbed Zhu Chen by the collar. Stop. Yi Junqing, do you still have us in your eyes? Yi Hongyi feigned anger as he roared. Your Majesty. Did you forget how he bewitched everyone with his words? How he made Imperial Father let out your and Junqing's blood? It's rare that he dares to leave Clear Wind Monastery. If Junqing doesn't beat him up this time, I swear I'm not a human. Yi Junqing's hair stood up in anger. Taking advantage of Yi Hongyi's momentary daze, he punched Zhu Chen again, causing Zhu Chen's front teeth to fly out along with blood. Your Majesty. Save me. At this moment, Zhu Chen finally got a taste of what it felt like to have his teeth knocked out. That's enough, Junqing. Zhu Chen is the state preceptor that we invited back. You can't be rude. Yi Hongyi's words shocked everyone. Your Majesty, he's a demonic cultivator. Reminded Yi Junqing indignantly. Your Majesty, the esteemed prince is right. This person can't be left alive. And Bing Shan never expected that Yi Hongyi would actually make Zhu Chen state preceptor. His heart instantly turned cold. All of you, shut up. We naturally have a way to tell if he's a demonic cultivator or not. Zhu Chen, right now, Her Majesty the Empress is here, so help her read her fortune. We want to know the Empress' fate. Shouted Yi Hongyi. This humble Daoist obeys. Zhu Chen had no choice but to use his sleeve to wipe away the blood on his face before respectfully walking in front of Yao Moen. Your Majesty. Yao Moen reflexively retreated and timidly hid in Yi Hongyi's embrace. Warner, don't be afraid. We're just having him read your fortune. It's fine. As Yi Hongyi spoke, he spread Yao Moen's palm in front of Zhu Chen. Zhu Chen carefully examined Yao Moen's palm. Sometimes he raised his brows, sometimes he cried out in surprise. In the end, he actually prostrated on the ground and called out to Phoenix Master. When Yao Moen saw Zhu Chen's exaggerated actions, her brows couldn't help but twitch. Zhu Chen, what's the meaning of this? Asked Yi Hongyi as he looked towards Zhu Chen in confusion. Replying, Your Majesty, based on Her Majesty the Empress's palm print, Her Majesty is the Phoenix Master with the mandate of heaven. She truly has an extremely wealthy and noble life. Forgive this humble Daoist for saying too much, but with Her Majesty the Empress overseeing the inner palace, Great Chu will definitely prosper forever, replied Zhu Chen sincerely. As the Empress, she naturally has an extremely wealthy and noble life. Muttered and Bing Shan quietly at the side. Swindler. Snorted Yi Junqing.